Get to Dave. Okay.
All right. Good, Chuck?
I think so. Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It's March 10th, 2021. We'll begin the Conservation Committee meeting. For those of you that have used to joining us, I think you know at this point, we are always getting the hang of technology here, so we do our best to kind of keep up with it, but it doesn't go without a little snag here and there. We've got a lot of people joining tonight, so we're going to try to keep everybody on mute from the beginning. But before we get into the meeting, I'll let Chuck kind of go over how the meeting's going to be set up and go through some ground rules. Chuck, do you want to take over?
Sure. Yes. Hello, everyone. It's Chuck Tironi, the Reading's Conservation Administrator. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis, this Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video and audio. Participants of the Conservation Commission, applicants and their representatives, and the public. When you enter the meeting, you will be automatically muted. And your video will be automatically disabled. That's what's happened. During this meeting, myself or the chair will unmute the commissioners, applicants, and representatives and members of the public individually as needed. During this meeting, the commissioners, applicants, and representatives will be the only attendees permitted to share videos. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, I would like to confirm that all members are present at tonight's meeting. Mike, would you like to go through a roll call?
Can do. And just please keep this order in mind. We'll use this as our order for the vote. Michael Flynn, Chair. Anika?
Yeah.
Try now, Anika.
Anika Scanlon, Vice Chair.
Martha?
Martha Moore, member.
John?
John Sullivan, member.
Carl?
Carl Sacconi, member.
Dave?
David Connect, member.
Scott?
Keith, member.
All right. I think that's everyone. All right, Chuck, go ahead.
Where are we at here? Before we get to tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of business to ensure that an accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair or the conservation administrator yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After the commissioner makes their remarks, and these have been addressed by the applicant, the chair or the conservation administrator will afford the public comment as follows. The chair or conservation administrator will first ask the members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair or the administrator has a list of public, the chair will call on each by name and afford them 4 minutes to comment. The applicant may be requested to respond by the chair or by the administrator. After public comment, the chair or the administrator will once again go down the list of commissioners, inviting each one of them to provide further comment, questions, or motions. Please hold on until your name is called. Finally, each vote taken during this meeting will be conducted by roll call. For anyone who speaks during tonight's meeting, please remember that to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. You can also turn off video on your device if you prefer. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Everyone just remember that we're being audio and video recorded, and anything you say can be picked up, and also on screen, anything that you're doing can be picked up. So be careful of your privacy.
Chuck, are we recording? Did we turn on?
I usually turn the recording on at this moment, so
Okay.
it's going to come on right now. Okay.
Excellent.
Jack,
Yes.
can I get, sorry to interrupt, but can I get the ability to mute or unmute myself?
You sure can. Okay. Any other commissioners want that ability? I'll just give it to all the commissioners. I don't know if I missed anyone. I think that's it. If I missed anyone, let me know.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. So we'll get started with our first agenda item. As Chuck said, the way the hearing is going to go is we'll open it up to the applicant to discuss the project. We'll then give opportunity for the commission to provide comment and turn it over for public comment if there's any questions. We've got everyone on mute, so there is the raise your hand feature if you'd like to provide some public comment. If you're unable to, you can always comment on the by emailing the Conservation Division. You can get the email address through the Conservation Division webpage. So we're going to open the public hearing on notice of intent filed by Keith and Samantha Zerfus under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes the construction of an addition, patio, 2-foot extension of the driveway, and removal of trees. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division webpage under the current project. It's Assessor's Map 40, Lot 52. And my understanding, this is Jack's, right, Chuck?
Yes,
that the
Jack
DEP
Sullivan.
file number is not yet. I think we checked it this afternoon, but we hadn't seen it yet.
I did check this afternoon and around 3 o'clock, Jack. So I don't know if you checked later than that, but I didn't find a file number. And I would also ask you if we've unmuted and turned on the video to your to the people that are applicants here. Is Jack unmuted? There we go.
You got it for me.
And I did check right before the meeting. The DEP still has not issued a file number.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, can I-
Thank you, Jack.
We begin. Mike?
Go ahead, David.
I just want to, in full disclosure, Keith and Samantha are close neighbors to mine, and I just want to state that I feel that I can impartially conduct myself in a respectful, responsible manner with the Zerfus' application. But I just want to,
Okay.
they're across the street neighbors of mine, so just for full disclosure.
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, Mike.
John, I think,
Yep.
yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm going to piggyback on Dave. I went to high school with both of the applicants, so I've known them for a long time. I don't think this will affect my ability to be impartial in any way, but if anybody has concerns, I would be happy to defer to them.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. All right, Jack,
Okay, great.
the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. And as stated, Keith and Samantha Zerfus are the owners of this property, and Keith is on this call. And also on this call, MBA Builders will be doing the addition, and Andrea from MBA Builders is here as well. Some background, I think you hit everything here, but it's a corner lot. It's on the corner of Linear Lane and Colonial Drive. On the abutting property to the right of them, there's it looks like a large isolated wetland or BVW area. It's off the subject property. Norse Environmental performed the delineation, and we show the wetland flags. All the work is outside of the 25-foot no disturbance buffer zone. And proposed structures are over 35 feet away. But I'll go through some of the highlights of this project. The owner wanted to include all the proposed work under this application, so we did so. But basically, to the rear of the there's an existing porch, and there's an existing deck that has concrete below it. Those will be demolished and removed to make way for a new, basically 18 by 18 addition to the rear of the house, and off of that addition, there'll be an 11 by 18 patio. To mitigate the impact of this addition, we're proposing a dry well be placed to capture the roof runoff of the proposed addition. It'll be a 500-gallon dry well with 12 inches of crushed stone surrounding. You can see to the rear of the lot, they'd like to expand their backyard and remove some trees. And really, it's just to get rid of the trees. We weren't really showing any grading to be done in that area. They just wanted to open the lot up some more. There's 8 trees to be removed. 7 of those trees are within the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands. I did talk with the client earlier today. They are going to come up with a planting plan to mitigate for the impact of the removal of those trees in lieu of making a payment to the town. So we're going to sit down, come up with the planting list with the native plantings and come up with how they'd like to do that, but we will be providing information to the commission on how they will plant it. Also, they're looking to expand the driveway by about 2 feet in width to give them a little more room. And to the rear of the existing house is an existing concrete pad that there's steps that access the existing deck. They're looking to remove that and replace it with a stamped concrete patio. On the front of the house is an existing platform and steps. It's right basically at the 100-foot buffer zone. They're looking to remove the platform and steps and replace it with a 4x6 roofed entry with steps. And there will be a stamped concrete walkway from those steps out towards Linear Lane. It's outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but that's another improvement to make to their plan. We did notify all abutters. Chuck was copied on the certified mailings to those abutters. So that's all been done, and I'll turn it over to the commission for any questions they might have.
All right, thank you, Jack.
I have a question,
Go ahead,
Mike.
Trevor.
This is more or less administrative. So I lost control of the screen. I don't know if you have that or Jack
I have
has
that.
it. All right.
I have that.
All right. If you know where I'm going to go next, that was really confusing. Okay. So can I handle the screen, Mike, from now on?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate that.
I'm more than happy to give that
I'll let
back
you finish this one, but
Okay.
you are the chair. I want you to handle public and, video and muting and stuff like
One
that.
less-
Okay,
I'm not
thank you.
gonna worry about having one less thing to do.
Yeah, let me do the screen. Thank you. Okay.
So I'll turn it over to other members of the commission. And if there's questions, I'm just going through John or Anika.
Is there an
Hey, John.
erosion control plan for this project?
I show erosion control. There's a heavy dashed line on the plan that's going to be a 12-inch diameter mulch sock backed with silt fencing. And it's shown, it's running along the right side of the property, right along the lot line, and then right along the limit of work line, right up, including where the trees will be removed. Yep, someone's pointing to it. Yep.
Anything else, John?
And then I'm reading the site plan correct. All the trees to be removed are outside of the proposed fence. Is that correct?
The trees to be removed all have an X through them. They're
Right.
all So that's why you can see I have the erosion control on the downhill side of those trees to protect anything. But those are those 8 trees are the ones to be removed, the ones that are
Right.
marked.
And they're all outside of the proposed fence around the backyard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry. Yep.
I think that's it for me.
All right. Anika?
Thanks. The 500-gallon concrete dry well, I see, Jack, I'm assuming that's getting direct runoff from the addition. Is that true?
That's right. So the proposed that 18 by 18, let's say addition, the roof leaders will connect to that dry well directly. You can see between the addition, the patio, you should see a RD roof drain. I show how the gutters will collect off those 2 corners and then be piped to the dry well.
Okay, and the proposed patio doesn't have it's not enclosed, it's just an open patio.
Just an open patio.
Okay. And you're also proposing that 18-inch retaining wall. What's the
Yes.
thought there? Sort of talk me through that.
Okay, so what's happening is you can see the slab grade of the addition is at 98.25.
Yeah.
But the grade outside of the building is around elevation 99. You can see it. It's in a grade. It's really small, but it says 99.3. But the patio is going to be at 97.6. So there's about an 18-inch drop there. So we're just showing that small section of retaining wall. It will be a true retaining wall to support the uphill side.
Okay. And I mean, the slope's going to sort of grade around that wall.
That's right.
To the right.
Yep. Yep. It'll drop back. The wall extends out about 6 to 8 feet from the addition, and so they'll have enough room to make a transitional grade back down to the existing grade.
And what kind of dimensions are the dry well? What roughly?
I believe it's 5 feet wide, 8 feet long, and it's about 4 feet deep, I believe. And if you see, where the wetland was, I showed a water elevation because that was one of our concerns. We wanted to make sure that where the proposed addition is, they actually lowered the slab grade on the house to give more headroom in this addition. So we wanted to make sure we had enough separation of where the water table would be. So you can see the water elevation when I did the survey in January is around elevation 94. The slab grade's a little over 98. So we'll still have sufficient separation to water with the dry well, even for drainage to the water table.
Okay, the slab grade is 98. Yeah. So the grade above that concrete dry well is going to be around 99.
Correct.
And then you measured a water elevation of 94 in January.
That's right.
Which is probably, I mean, I don't know. You know, the wetland line is at 96. Do you think that dry well's going to get inundated?
Well, I may not be able to have a 2 foot. I'm looking up right now to see how.
I don't know if you have to have a 2 foot separation.
Yeah.
It's just a question I have. It's kind of close.
I see what you're saying. I mean,
I'm not mixing it. I'm just pointing it out. And I'm all for infiltration.
the good news is I just pulled it up just to check this. So from the top of the dry well to the bottom of the dry well is 2 foot 8 inches.
Oh, that's good. That helps.
So if the ground grade is around 99, let's say it's 3 feet, that's 96. I have the water
Plus
at
crushed stone.
94. Yep.
plus like 6 inches, or how much crushed stone do you have to have around it?
Yeah, I usually put,
Oh, it's
I
a dry
put
well.
12 inches around the dry well, and I usually bed it on 6 inches of crushed stone. So I think
So
we'll
an
be okay.
additional foot, so 3.5 feet. Okay, that was one of my main questions. Another question is just sort of inquiring, what's the thought process behind the taking of the 8 trees? That's kind of a lot of trees, and I understand it's a bit of the outer buffer. But I am interested in seeing the planting plan.
Okay, Keith, are you available to speak on why you want the trees removed?
Yes, can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
So part of it is that the trees just have never been cared for. And some of them are very old and they're gonna have to be taken down at some point in time. And I would rather just rework that space to have them taken down before they become a larger issue. And then, we're gonna wanna put shrubs in something else anyways. So I'd rather do a swap at that point in time, rather than wait for these trees to become an issue one by one down the road and then have to go through another application process and pay for the tree company to come again.
Gotcha. I don't have any other questions at this time.
All right. Thank you, Anika. Carl or Martha? I'll start with you, Carl. You're on mute, just in case you.
Hi. Yeah, just maybe one question was so the construction access, I'm assuming, is just from the driveway area, right?
Correct.
In?
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. And then I just was going to remark about the trees as well, but the homeowner already sort of enlightened us with that, and I guess I would just be interested to see the proposal for replacement shrub and tree. So
Anything else?
My turn?
Go ahead, Martha.
I was also questioning about the trees, and I took a good look this afternoon. It looks like the back lawn up against the existing chain link fence, there's really nothing but grass back there, even inside the 25-foot zone. There's the one tree in the back of the yard. And so I would think that if they were going to come up with a planting plan, I'd like to see a more natural buffer zone, in that area that Chuck's indicating, closer to the wetland, because there's a lot of wildlife value in them. Even if they're unmanaged trees, they're still providing wildlife habitat in that yard. I also noticed that there were a couple of trees, and it's hard for me to reconcile the locations of the trees on this plan with the trees that I saw out in the yard, but it looked like there was a lot of stick debris, compost, maybe some timber, branches, and things like that up against the trunks of a couple of the trees in that side yard. And also a plastic, looks like it might have been a Brave New composter at one point that's now sort of lying on the ground over there. And if the trees I'm thinking of are the two just inside the 100-foot buffer, then that broken brave new composter is also in that general area of the two trees closest to the line. So if those trees don't get taken down, I think they are in danger of being damaged by all the branch debris that's up against them next to the road there. But that's what's confusing to me, is because the trees on the plot plan look like they're further away from the road than the ones that have debris against them. So are there more trees on the lot that I'm not seeing drawn in, or is the street closer than it looks?
I believe there's probably more trees. Keith, I tried to locate just the trees you wanted to take down that were within the 100-foot buffer. Those were the ones that were pointed out to me. But if I remember when I did the survey, I think it was pretty wooded over that side.
Yeah.
There might have been more trees.
Yep. And I think those trees that she's concerned about are definitely outside that buffer.
Okay. But I think those trees that are 6 to 10 feet from the road are likely to get killed by the way their roots are being buried under all of that debris. They're on a slope and one side of them is pretty impacted by the piles of brush. So I don't know how that's going to impact if you take down trees inside the 100-foot buffer and leave those, that's likely to run into problems as well. That was all my comments.
All right. Thank you, Martha. Dave and Scott. We'll start with Dave and we can move to Scott. Sorry, Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry, just knowing the lot, there are additional trees that are up against the street that are outside the 100-foot buffer. So there are additional trees that are there on that lot. Not all of the trees that are on that particular drawing are actually shown, because there actually are a number of trees that are on the right-hand side of the driveway that actually are not marked on the drawing either. So there are additional trees that are outside of the 100-foot buffer line. So I would have to agree with Jack that he only marked the ones that they wanted to take out.
Okay. Any other items, Dave?
Nope.
Okay. Scott?
Just interested in seeing the planting plan like others, but no other questions, comments.
Okay. Jack, and so I went to the site yesterday because I was dropping something off down the street, and I was, so the way, and you can kind of see it in the spot grades, the way the driveway works is there's an existing paved area, and then it drops off to the back area where the trees are. And I know there's two drainage easements you can see on here that are kind of meeting. I guess the area, and maybe I didn't look at this close enough or realize this when I was looking at it yesterday, but the area in the I guess what I'll call the top of the page, but it's still part of the side yard. Does that drop? I'm looking at the spot grade of like 95. One, it's all around the same elevation as the wetland. Is there any sort of ditch down there or drainage? We didn't see any vegetation or.
I couldn't see anything. It's just low grades. I don't know what's in that drain easement. You see the 15-inch pipe that goes into the wetland area. I tried to show a direction on it. If you see how I kind of face the pipe, that's how the pipe runs. and it looks like it cuts across of this property outside of the drain easement, but I
Yeah.
don't know where it originated from. I don't know. I don't know, but there's nothing open in that drain easement that you were talking about up top with the spot grade of 95.1. It's just grass area. It's just a low area. It's low.
That's kind of what I saw. Again, as I saw it yesterday, I don't think I picked up on this until I started looking at the grades here. So, okay.
That drain easement,
Yeah.
that drain easement that runs top to the bottom of the page actually runs down between the adjacent properties behind this lot. There's a ditch there, but there's never any running water in it. And it actually runs in a pipe underneath Barbara Lane, runs between the other two properties that are on the other side of Barbara Lane, then comes out in another ditch that runs down behind Autumn Lane. So basically all of that is underground.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I think my comment is the same as everybody else. I am interested to see the planting plan, partially because it's a lot of trees in the zone. I think it's outside. I mean, what I would say about the trees, well, I think on the page here, it looks like we're taking down a lot. The vegetation is scattered. The trees are scattered. It is primarily a grassy type area. I got the same impression that there's more right along the street and along the back that are not marked. These are just the ones that are looking to come down. I was intrigued by Martha's comment about where she would like to see planting, and I liked it, but I don't know if it's even possible, Chuck, and maybe this is a question for you. There is an existing fence, an existing chain link fence, and then there's the drain easement between, basically that goes into the wetland partially. We wouldn't want to plant it. I mean, they could come in at any time and take anything down in that area, right?
Just on the easement.
Just on the easement.
So
Yeah.
do I see the easement defined by the fence, or is it where's the other half of the easement?
Yeah,
Or
the easement's off our property. It's on the abutting property. The
Sure.
fence, fence is at the lines with the little circles. That kind of, it runs, into the easement, out of the easement. So there's some ability to plant within that 25-foot zone. I just have to talk to Keith and Samantha and see how they want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. There may not be a ton of room, but
it is open.
Okay. Chuck, do you have comments?
Yes, I was just wondering how many trees in total, even outside the buffer zone, are coming down on this property.
I don't know. I can check with Keith and Samantha. I was looking more inside the 100 feet to show what we were doing, but we can come up with a total if I need to show additional trees to come down outside the 100.
Yeah, I think if they were taking down all the trees on the property, it would be helpful for the commission to understand that. Or are these the only 8 trees that are coming down? I mean, it has to be put in context. So we want to know the extent of the work, even if it's outside of our property, because what's outside sometimes affects what's inside the jurisdictional area. So that's why I'm asking my question. When the commission went out there, were there any yard waste areas that need to be cleaned up as part of this? I did not get a chance to check this out. I think that the commission asks that yard waste that is historic be removed from the site when construction happens. But I don't know if there was anything out there. So that's pretty typical. And then Jack, around this 500-gallon concrete dry well, I don't see any. Is there spot grades or is there grading there we can see? I was wondering if it encroaches where the extent of that encroachment. So if we could help us understand how far out that ends up going, that would be very helpful.
Yep.
That's all I have.
I can add that information. And I think your point's good, Chuck, on what trees are gonna remain or be removed, because if we do a planting plan, we wanna see what's staying, what's gonna be planted, what can survive for an overall plan. So I'll get together with the owners on that and we'll get that information on the plan.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Nika, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I want to ask about any additional like access points, any doorways going to open up from the addition onto the lawn? Are there going to be any stairs off the porch, the patio?
Well, it's a walkout basement on the addition, and then the patio's at grade. It's on, there's no steps. It's gonna be, that's why we're trying to meet the grade as close as possible with the patio, with the existing ground grade. We're within like 3 or 4 inches,
Okay.
so it'll be flush.
So it's walkout onto the patio.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Any other items? Go ahead, Martha.
In answer to Chuck's question about yard waste, I would think that the sticks up against the trees along Colonial Drive might qualify as that, but I don't know if they're inside or outside the 100-foot line and whether that impacts Chuck's comment about removing yard waste.
I believe
I
you'll
think
find
if it's something that's beneficial. Go ahead, Dave, sorry.
you find that yard waste that's there, it's right adjacent to the street, it's outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah, I think if it's something that's beneficial to the vegetated health out there, it's still something that we'd be interested in seeing cleaned up. And I think that just goes in line with what we talked about with the planting plan, Jack. I think you've got the right idea of, you know, it's all going to mesh together over there. So understanding what's there, what's going to remain, how the new stuff is, how the new planting is going to be incorporated into that, I think it's just all kind of mixed in together. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Anika.
Yeah, sorry, just one last thing. I'm assuming this, but just to have it said, I assume construction access is through the driveway.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from the public? You can
This
use
one.
the raise your hand feature. All right, I'm not seeing any.
Did you see Liam? You see Liam?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't even realize I was scrolled down. Go ahead, Liam, if you could just provide your name and address, and you can ask a question.
Hello, my name is Liam Sennett. I'm with the RMHS Environmental Club, and I live on Elm Street in Reading. And I wanted to add, with the trees being taken down, it might be worthwhile to do an evaluation on any wildlife that might be living in the trees, such as beehives or birds' nests, and making sure that those can be moved or otherwise taken care of before the trees come down.
Thank you, Liam. Good comment. Are there any other comments? All right, just you'll hear this again from me, but if you felt like you had a comment and you weren't able to get one in, you can always provide comment through email at the Conservation Division webpage. So I think we've got a path forward for this. I think, Jack, you have a few items on your list that to take care of, but I feel like it's relatively straightforward from here. I know I think you heard from a lot of the commissioners we're interested in seeing the planting plan
Mhm.
But certainly, if you want to engage, in between the meetings of how does this look with Chuck, obviously, you know where to reach him and utilize him. So,
Great. Yep, thank you.
all right. So I guess with that, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the notice of intent for 27 Linnea Lane to the next meeting.
Can I hear a second?
Second,
I second.
All right, thank you. Michael Flynn in favor.
Mika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Keith in favor.
Dave, I
Got
think
it.
you're on mute.
David Panett in favor.
Sure.
All right,
I
thank you.
just want to make a comment that the next meeting is March 24th and starts at 7 o'clock.
All right, thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. Move on to the next item on our agenda. This is a notice of intent. We're going to open the public hearing for notice of intent for 62 Great Coach Lane, filed by Arthur and Janet Triglione under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes construction of a one-story addition and associated site grading. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessors Map 47, Lot 10, and I think this is the same thing, Chuck. We don't yet have a DEP file number.
As of 3 o'clock, and Jack said he checked later on. I suspect there may not be one for this either. Jack?
Right, no number yet.
All right, welcome back, Jack.
Thank
And,
you.
is Arthur on the screen somewhere?
He was
Yeah, I
earlier.
see him, Chuck.
Yeah,
I
okay.
can, all right, just so you know, you have the option to unmute if you'd like to, or just raise your hand if you need to get in.
I'm here.
All right, excellent. All right, Jack, we'll turn it over to you. Chuck, you've got the driver's seat on the
Thank
the
you.
sharing
Thank you,
screen.
Mike. Appreciate that confidence.
All right, again, for the record, Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. I know Art's in attendance tonight, the owner. I thought I saw Jan around somewhere as well.
Mike, could you?
But this project had been in front of you previously. You actually just issued a certificate of compliance in November and December for some restoration work that was needed on this site. And following that, they've decided they'd like to do a small addition off the left-hand side of their house. It's going to be a little over 35 feet to the wetland line. We use the same wetland line that was previously used for this project. As you know, conservation markers were put in the rear yard. So really the only change will be this addition, and they're trying to fit it in. There's an existing stone wall on the front side of the house that will remain. When they're digging out for the addition, it may have to be rebuilt, but they're planning on keeping it there. It's going to be a walkout basement, and where I'm right up against the 35-foot no structure line, I am showing a drip trench to be used since we have a high groundwater table in this area. You can see, like, out at the wetland line, we're around elevation 98, and the ground grade is around 100 at the walkout portion of this addition. So a conventional dry well system would not work. So I'm showing a 12-inch wide by 18-inch deep crushed stone drip trench to be provided. You can also see the heavy line along the lot line. And along the line, we're proposing a 12-inch diameter mulch sock backed by silt fencing. There'll be very little grading changes, and the access point will be along the left side of the house here over the existing lawn. So that's why I do show the erosion control where I show it. I'll turn it over to the commission to see if they have any questions, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Jack. I guess I'd like to start with a quick question about the wetland line. So this line is the same one that came in from when this project came to us previously, correct? So was this surveyed by, was it Norris or something back at some point?
A different botanist, I think. I did the survey work originally when there were like 3 homes that had a violation with some tree cutting. Arden Jan was one of them. I did the survey work, but it was another botanist who did the wetland flagging.
It was Tom Hughes.
Tom Hughes.
I believe
Okay,
they
I
used
remember
Tom
that.
Hughes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All
it's still the same line as you had seen, previously when this was done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll go, I guess, the opposite direction from where I went last time. Scott, we can start with you and Dave next. Do you have any questions, Scott?
No, I don't have any questions.
Dave?
I really didn't have any questions. I just, Jack already answered my questions when he described what was happening on site. So,
Okay. Martha, do you have?
Will the addition be on slab, or will there be any sort of basement underneath it?
Art, do you know that answer?
There will be a basement.
And does that mean that there will need to be sump pumps or anything like that, or will it not go down deep enough to get into the water table?
Do you have a sump pump in your house now, Art?
No, everything's dry.
And we're not going any deeper than your existing basement.
Correct.
So no sump pump. And I should have added the area where the addition's going is over a grassed area now, and no trees are to be cut for this project.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Thank you, Martha. Carl?
I was going to ask for the trees, but you just answered that question. And I guess I can't tell the stone wall off the kind of street side of the addition. Was that, I couldn't tell, I guess, was that existing or?
It's existing.
Okay. And that's to remain existing.
It's to remain. My thought is when they're gonna have to over dig for the foundation walls. So
Right.
they may disrupt that stone wall, but it's gonna be rebuilt.
It'll just be rebuilt in the same location, in other words, right? Like
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just, okay. I think that was really, and there's no other vegetation really, so I think that's all I was wondering.
Sorry. Anika, any questions?
Jack, I know you said it, but I missed it. Where is the walkout?
It's right on the backside where the 9-foot dimension is shown. The right there, that's the walkout right there.
And is there going to be like any pavers, any
I don't believe so.
hardscape there?
Art, are you just gonna come out to a grassed area out of the addition?
That's it. Yes.
So no proposed pavers or any sort of patio or anything.
Correct.
And no additional, is there any additional sort of like, air conditioning or heating? Any additional utilities sort of sitting outside that footprint?
No,
I don't believe so.
no, there is not.
Okay. The existing foundation, is it like I assume on the uphill side, in other words, against that retaining wall kind of area, it's probably a full depth foundation, but around other portions of the property, is it just a partial foundation for the basement? I'm just trying to get a sense.
I think it'll be a full foundation, but they may step the foundation as they move towards the back of the lot and extend the siding down so that you don't see as much concrete. That's what I think they'll do. So the foundation will be stepped as you go back,
From the stone retaining wall towards the pool.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, yeah, those were my questions. So well, actually, I'm sorry, one more. So the bottom of, it's pretty lucky, I guess I'll say, that, the existing basement doesn't have any water issues. Because it doesn't look like there's a lot of separation. And if the wetlands get flooded, I assume like a lot of that backyard gets flooded too. Is that fair to say?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Backyard is dry.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's what I wanted to know.
All right, thank you. And John.
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you. Frankly, I don't know that I do either. Chuck, do you have anything?
Sure. Yeah, Jack, I was wondering, I'm not visualizing this basement area. You said it's a one-story addition, but it has a full walkout basement. But the grade is only 2 feet from front to back. So I guess to make it simple, my real question is there a need for any dewatering when you start digging this foundation? Do you think that needs to be anticipated?
I don't think so, because they'll basically, when we're saying a full foundation, it's basically going to be, it's almost like a slab on grade, because the base, if my elevation right outside the back's around 100, that's going to be around where the slab is. So there'll be frost walls. So they will have to dig down 4 feet down to like elevation 96. So there could be some water they have to deal with, but that's just when they pour the footings.
Okay, so it's a full foundation, but if it's a frost wall and you're walking out in that area on the other side, so
Yeah.
All right.
So it's really on that. It's really like they'll just have a 4 foot deep frost wall with a slab. This isn't something like, you have a full basement below the ground. The slab's basically.
That's what I was thinking.
It's almost like a slab. It's almost a slab on grade. We're saying a full foundation, but it's really, we're extending the foundation from the house, but it's really a slab.
Sure. The drip trench and, having it drip between the stone wall that you're putting back and the house on the top of the grade, do you anticipate any issues with that on that side? You're good with that? Okay.
I'll be okay with that.
All right. And then I think Anika was asking the question about the walkout. And I also wanted to make sure that even anything proposed in this is the 35-foot line right here.
Yeah.
And any structures that cross that we don't know about would have to come back for variance. So this patio or any kind of connecting pathway or something like that, if that's anticipated, it should be part of this proposal. If not, if you're just going to be a simple, I don't know, 2 foot by 3 foot step or something to that effect, then that looks like it'll work. But you don't want it to cross this line over in the corner here.
Right, right. I think the intent is just to have it grassed. If there's anything beyond that, we'd have to come back before you guys to get permission to do it. I mean, maybe put down like a flagstone or something on the grass, but we're not proposing to construct any sort of patio areas or anything.
Yeah, I know. I think for the future, the commission asks a lot of questions when we see kind of like an envelope, for construction that doesn't contain a deck. So you're asked, where's the deck? How's it going to be fit in there? Add the deck and add that step off the back of the house or off the back of the walkout, because it just ends up being a question. So that's why that's all the questions I have about this proposal.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows that the owner actually just sent me a good elevation view of the rear of it's just one 3-foot wide door that's going to exit out into that area. It's not a slider. It's just a single door off of that 9-foot dimension, centered on that 9-foot dimension. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? All right, any questions from the public? Not seeing any, but as we said, if you have a question, you can always email the Conservation Division webpage. I mean, Jack, I think I'll get this going here. I think you've heard it from the commission. This seems relatively straightforward to us. We don't have a DEP file number yet. And either way, with the notice of intent, I think this is one of those that, I'll leave what others think in the commission, but I think this is something we could start telling Chuck, let's start preparing. I don't think we've given you a whole lot that I've heard of to come back with, or anything, I guess, that to be clear from the commission to really come back with. So are there any open items, Chuck, that we sat? I mean, you're muted. Maybe I can answer. I don't think there's any.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just trying to grab something off the other screen. I don't have any open items. I think this is a pretty good run on what we need. Again, this project came to us. We're not questioning the line, the understanding of how dry it is out there. It's familiar. So with what we know on top of this project and how it was presented, I don't have any additional information I need.
All right. So Jack, I'm going to recommend from the commission standpoint that we continue just so we can get a order of conditions prepared, but I don't think we're sending you back with a list of things to do. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense to the commission? Did I hear a motion? Dave, I think you're speaking, you're on mute.
Motion to continue 62 Great Coach Road.
Ryder, second?
Second?
Oh.
All right. Michael Flynn, in favor?
Anika Scanlon, in favor.
Martha Moore, in favor.
John Sullivan, in favor.
Carl Ciccone, in favor.
David Connett, in favor.
Keith, in favor.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Art.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Moving right along, we'll get into our old new business. Chuck, do we want to, is there a certain order you want to do this in? You want to? you're muted again.
How's that keep happening? So I'm just going to unmute the Mystic River Watershed Association and find out if Catherine is this person. If not,
I saw Amy Ball is here as well.
yeah, Amy needs to be unmuted. Catherine Petamonte, if you see that. And then Catherine sent me I see Amy, yeah.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Good.
All right, I saw
And then-
that email. I actually don't use my office email or computer, so I don't see any of that. So how fortunate I saw the request for the valid ID. So I think we're ready to go with the Mystic River Watershed Association presentation. Is that correct, Chair Flynn?
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight, you know what, I'm only just going to say that we have a great opportunity here at our Millet, Psalms, and Morgan land, and that's kind of surrounded by Willow Street and Lee Street. And so this is an area that's familiar to the commission because we had the Abidjona Headwater Trails grant and community and trails committee, trail and bog bridge and boardwalk just finished off a couple months ago. And it's really become a great area for people to go in and relax and to walk through that area, which was completely closed up a couple years back. It's opened up now, and Alex Rizicki is a assistant town stormwater engineer, and he's been involved with the Mystic River MVP project from the beginning. And they're proposing to do some stormwater work in the Psalms and Morgan, I think I have that right, the Psalms and Morgan land, which is on the Willow Street side. And Catherine Petamonte from the Mystic River Watershed Association, she's the project manager. I'll introduce her, and I know that Amy Ball is here from Horsley and Witten, and we've worked with Amy before on Howard Street, so we're very familiar with Amy. And I'll let Amy and Catherine, maybe we'll introduce the rest of the team and then take this presentation forward. And I'm going to give Catherine screen sharing permission, or everyone?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Catherine, sure. Okay.
All right, Amy and Jen, are you fine if I kick it off? And then when I switch it over to you guys, you can introduce your team. I'm going to go ahead. Okay, it says host disabled participant screen share.
Mike, can you get that for me? I'm having a little bit here.
I have no idea what.
Make her
how
a
to do that.
co-host.
Thank you.
Did that work?
No.
Or sometimes there's the security button at the bottom, and if you go under that, you can go up and hit the button next to share screen. Or I can email somebody the
Hold
presentation.
on a second. I'll try to step in on this.
Thanks.
All right.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
All
there
right.
you go.
Excellent.
All
I think we
right.
grabbed it at the same time.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Present. All right. Chuck and Michael, thank you so much. Again, my name is Catherine Petamonte. I'm a project manager with the Mystic River Watershed Association, and I'm here tonight with Horsley Witten to talk a bit about, as Chuck mentioned, a great opportunity for some green infrastructure in Reading. And before I turn it over to Amy and Jen to get into that, I actually wanted to just take a couple minutes to kind of zoom back and talk a little bit about you know, the bigger vision and sort of how we got here. So, whoops, my bad. Okay. All right. So really zoom back for a second. Climate resilience in the Mystic River watershed. I don't think I have to say much on this. I think we can all agree that, we're really at a stage where we need to start being pretty forward looking and thinking about how to make our communities resilient in the face of changing climate. However, we in the watershed have kind of a particular challenge. I really like these two images side to side. We have our watershed on one side, Reading's right at the top here, and then on the right we have Amsterdam. So fairly similar size, fairly similar density. Amsterdam is a little bit bigger and a little bit more people. We have 21 municipalities. They have 1. And as we all know, when we get a big storm event, the rain does not stop at municipal lines. So in our watershed, there is a great need for some really good collaboration and partnership when we're looking at resilience, climate resilience. So with that in mind, a few years ago, we started the Resilient Mystic Collaborative. Reading was really one of those initial thought partners on this. So it's a partnership of pretty much all of the municipalities within the watershed. I think Wilmington, that just has its toe in the watershed, is not part, but everybody else is. It's voluntary. It's a few years old, and we've already secured $2.5 million in regional climate funding to work on regional projects around resilience. So we do this work through our working groups. We have one group focusing on social resilience, one on advocacy and outreach, and then one focusing on the lower Mystic, while one focuses on the upper Mystic. So the upper Mystic is the 17 communities above the dam. Again, I kind of enjoyed this. I think this is a really good image, sort of illustrating the kind of challenges and opportunities in the lower Mystic and upper Mystic. You can see the lower Mystic is really probably a little more focused on coastal sea level rise and coastal storms. We up here a little bit more focused on precipitation-based flooding. Obviously, both experience both of these things. And in terms of the opportunities, we have a lot of green space up here that the lower Mystic does not. And then the group identified as sort of a broad goal, regional stormwater management. So with that in mind, in 2018, the group applied for and secured funding from MVP to begin to look at a model to further understand flooding and start to look at tools to manage flooding. So we started with the Cambridge model. Our consultant team bumped it out to include all the municipalities and began to really wrap our heads around, what will a 2070, what will these different storms look like with sea level rise? Like where is the flooding going to be? And what are different tools to manage this flooding? And one of the tools that rose to the top as a really good option for our watershed, and particularly the upper Mystic, was stormwater wetlands. I'm sorry, that's my brother. Stormwater wetlands as a great tool for managing flooding, reducing pollution, and also, great amenities for the community. So we started out with over 450 sites within the community, narrowed it down to about 18 based on hydrology, soil, slopes, public appetite for projects, equity and environmental justice, and then connectivity to other open space and the river. And then from these 18, we honed in on the top 3. I feel like this is the big reveal that everybody already knew. Reading was one of those sites that rose to the top as a really good option for this. And then this past year, we secured more funding to do design, permitting, and of course, community engagement around these 3 potential opportunities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen and Amy to kind of zoom in even farther. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Jen, you're muted.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
Jen can't
go ahead,
get
Amy.
unmuted.
Yeah, well, Chuck, can you unmute
Oh.
Jen because she's talking?
Yeah.
Thanks.
That work,
Sorry
Jen?
about that.
No worries.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so would it be possible to be able to share my screen as
Sure.
well? If not, that's
I just gave you permission, sure.
awesome. Thank you. So one of the aspects of this project here is for us, and I'll try to get this so you guys can see it in total here, is for us to sort of do a two-pronged approach as the engineers. And one is sort of evaluating the field conditions, and then the next part is the design. And so we are just sort of in the beginning. We've taken the information from the consultants under the phase one work, and we are now working ourselves to sort of look at both the site itself and the area sort of draining to the site. So I just want to quickly just show you a few things that we've been working on and then get to the concept, because I know that's what everybody's excited to see. But one of the important parts is really understanding like how did this site come to be, just to understand, you know, what is the hydrology, what is the habitat and wildlife that are living here, and how does it function as sort of the upper headwaters of the Erosion. And so one of the things that we're working on now is an environmental conditions assessment with our firm's a licensed site professional who looks at sort of contamination and other items in terms of looking at historical uses. And one thing that's really interesting for us is always just kind of seeing over time what this looks like. And you can kind of see here how there used to be ag and a lot of other sort of uses in the vicinity, and how straightened the channel has been over time in this area and downstream. And I know that one of the things in terms of addressing this project, you know, is as Catherine talked about, is flooding, and that these sort of changes in the system and tree cover and impervious cover really affect and impact how flooding and how water flows through into Erosion. So I think it's really important to set those sort of contexts. And so that's part of the work that we're doing. In addition to that, we've worked with our surveyor, another consultant surveyor, to look at the site in terms of what is the existing topography, what are the utilities running to and through the site, where are the existing resource areas. The green here is the wetland, and the Erosion is roughly outlined in the blue. There are several constraints on the site, I'm sure, for those who've gone there, the railroad to the southwest and Lowell Street to the east, and the two culverts that sort of come through. So there's a lot of things that are happening on this site. And so one of those things, like I said, is to go through sort of the desktop analyses of what's going on. And so, and then the second part is the field part. And that's the part we're about to start. That's probably, for the most part, why we're here tonight, is because we're about to embark on some field studies. So like I said, our environmental conditions staff have been doing a lot of desktop analysis. They're going to go on site, review to see if there's any sort of concerns in terms of dumping in materials. We have staff, Amy Ball, my colleague on this phone call, and her colleague Ben Woolman, who will be going out probably next week or the following week, looking at invasive species, habitat characterization, trees, also just verifying the wetland delineation that was done, getting a sense of the site. And then the third piece is really the soil borings that we're here for today, which is intended to provide soil characterization and an understanding of, again, if there's, we are intending at least to do some soil testing, really high level. Again, what we've seen from the historical photos, as you saw, no immediate concerns in terms of usage, because it is mostly urban or agricultural, which doesn't usually present a high risk, but always great to know in advance of doing projects if there's anything to be aware of or risk. So that's sort of the background. And I don't know, Chuck, do you want to just go through the borings and talk about the process for the field work and then talk concept? Or would you like me to walk through the concept first?
Chuck, you're muted.
Muted, Chuck.
I think that if you can bring that, the concept forward, do you have the plan or?
I do, yep.
Okay, great.
So I'm gonna bring it up and try to.
So while we're bringing the plan up, I'll just let the commission know that soil borings in our, so usually this is exempt, but in our bylaw that we like to have notification. And the way I've been running this since I got here in 2011 is if no trees are being cut down, so no disturbance, nothing permanent happens, we allow this through on an administrative approval. But the Ipswich River Watershed Association came here tonight to introduce themselves, and we're going to talk about the borings in this case also, just because it's a good way to see the project and then take a closer look at what's going on out there with the borings. So anyways, take it away, Jen.
Okay. Yeah. So what we're doing here, as Catherine alluded to, is sort of thinking about a way to combine the idea of stormwater management and treatment and also flood management. And so this site, as you saw in the previous graphic, is about 50% existing wetland, bordering vegetated wetland and its buffer, right? So, and then of course there's the Erosion as well, headwaters. And I believe we're considering that as intermittent, so no riverfront in terms of regulatory concerns, but that's something that we're trying to be mindful of. So what we're doing in this design here is really trying to focus on trying to get storage and treatment in the upland. So what you see here, and I know this is a sketch, and we're working on sort of the site plan now, but these sort of blue circles, blobs here are basically consist of two things. One is this sort of pre-treatment element that would obviously manage stormwater that may come off, I'll talk about this in a second, either come off of Lowell Street or possibly come off of the culvert that is underneath Lowell Street. And that water would be treated in the upfront pre-treatment forebay, sediment forebay. And then that would overland flow to these basically various pools of various depths. We're showing islands here, sort of over the existing easement. This green dashed line here is the existing 25-foot sewer easement. There's a 12-foot, or 12, excuse me, yeah, 25-foot sewer easement with a 12-inch sewer underneath it. And so we're trying here to sort of vary the depths and vary the volumes. That creates different habitat for, or different vegetation to thrive, and that different vegetation uptakes pollutants and has different benefits. It also has different benefits for existing habitat as well. And that sort of works through a pool system until we get to the existing wetland, where we are proposing a cross, essentially trying to hydraulically connect these two, these two pools underneath what we're proposing to be like a boardwalk type system. And I'll get to the connectivity throughout this parcel in a second, because I know that's a key piece of this concept because of the existing work that's already been done. So that continues to work through these various pools and across, and then outlet towards the bottom here. And what you're seeing in this concept, and it's a little bit hard to tell here, but these black dashed lines would essentially be either at grade or boardwalk paths, ADA compliant. And we talked a little bit too with Chuck about the fact that, you know, you guys are allowing mountain bikes on these paths. So we would obviously be mindful of sort of the multi-use nature of these paths. So in terms of selection of materials and maintenance as well, to be mindful of both the size, the width, and the type of material. And we would try to create over here a nice loop, and potentially also, we've talked through this with this town, trying to create additional loops to allow people to have more of an opportunity to see both on the Aberjona side, but also sort of on the upland side, the existing mature trees and vegetation, get a nice view of the existing bird sanctuary on the other side, as well as the existing wetland in the interior of the parcel. And those pathways continue and would be sort of sinuous as shown to provide exactly kind of what's there now, right? This really nice experiential location where you have, it's not a direct cut through basically from the site, from one end to the other. We do recognize that, there are a lot of opportunities here to provide access for residents besides those that are in this neighborhood. So we are looking at adding a small parking lot with a turnaround that would be attached at the bottom of this existing access path. And there would be I think on this side, and probably this side as well, some, interpretive signage, educational signage that would allow people to, like mapping or other information about the wildlife and birds and things that exist in there, in that space. Yeah, and I should, the last thing is the trees. There's been a lot of conversation about trees tonight. The big thing that we're trying to do and why these pools kind of look the way they do is one of the focuses of this design is to try to maintain the existing mature trees to the extent possible. And I think the previous design that I think was done, I think we would like to, for the most part, I think, because the woodlands are in such good condition, and I think the wetlands are great, it would be nice to maintain those. And on top of that, to do some invasive species management that will allow the views to be open again to that bird sanctuary and also into the interior of the woodland, acknowledging that there's a lot of various different types of invasive species that my colleague Amy will hopefully collect when she's out on site.
Sure.
Any questions?
I had something to add to it. When I think anyone who's looking at the plan that's on the screen right now, you can see a red dashed line around the detention areas. That is just a limit of work line. That does not, that is not showing a trail. So I just wanted people to be aware of that.
Yes, and I think we talk about really trying to maintain a good buffer, a good distance from the existing abutters in these locations to be able to, not disturb their existing properties, but also I think for the path, for the use of but for the wetland itself and for the paths that are going to be on site, also maintain that buffer for sort of again this sort of air, sound space buffer for those folks to experience that space in quiet. Relatively quiet.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any other questions, Mike. I'm going to let you take it over.
I'll open up to the, yeah, so I'll open up to the commission. Does any of the commissioners have questions or comments? Anika, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a number of questions. So just as an overview, just to make sure I understand the big picture, some preliminary plans that I'm seeing here, it looks like the idea is to construct pools, and to receive stormwater from pretty much Lowell Street, I'm assuming, not necessarily Willow, or is it both streets?
Correct. Well, right now, and actually, if you don't mind, then I just scroll to something. So right now, in terms of stormwater, that gets to this site, that I should say, that gets to the site from both sides. So there's a culvert here. There's a large portion of that gets from the eastern side, and to pull it into the site would require some modification of that culvert and or some modification to the infrastructure on that site. So I think one of the things, like I was saying before, was, we would try to we could try to go down that route. I think right now what we're thinking is, either looking at trying to capture Willow, little portion of Willow and Lowell to the west, and possibly some on Grove Street, maybe trying to pull that in. Otherwise, it's also a possibility of, even looking at on stream and trying to for larger storms, send some of those flood waters out of the Erosion and into the system. I think we don't have all the information that we need to make that assessment right now. So that's some of the work that we're going to be doing when we go out in the field in the next coming weeks.
Okay. I'm going to follow up with a couple of other questions. It looks like the work is probably going to involve the excavation of some areas in the existing Millette conservation land. And you talked about soil sampling. Can you, I don't know if maybe it's too early to talk about this, but have you looked into the history of that fill material, and can you give some overview of how that land was used? And I'm also going to get into sampling. I'm curious to know what you're going to sample for.
Yeah, so we are still working on the report. My LSP is still working on the report. I know that he has interviewed Chuck, Alex, and others, has received a bunch of information from the town. His assessment to me is that so far, like I was saying before, this site appears to have been mostly, it's urban in nature. Like there is definitely some fill there. Obviously, there's an existing sewer that the Erosion in this location basically was a dredged channel in the 50s, I believe, when the culvert was put in. So there is agricultural area in the past in this location, and with agriculture there can be concerns of arsenic because that's what they used as pesticides historically. So in terms of testing, so I don't have an answer for you completely because his report is not done, and I know that he also needs to be on site to do his own assessment of existing conditions as well as historical. But the testing so far, and this is actually true of all three sites, that we're trying to do just typical urban fill, which is your PCBs and your sort of I'm not as good at remembering all the acronyms.
I understand.
Nucleic, yeah, PAHs,
I understand.
And metals and things.
PCBs, yep.
Exactly. So nothing that's sort of out of the ordinary. There's nothing that we know of, even from talking again with Chuck and others, that's a red flag for us. So we don't anticipate it being an issue in terms of imminent hazard. Some of the things that MCP. I don't think we're going to come into that. It's mostly just characterizing it so that we understand if there is anything of concern. It's just a budgeting and understanding like where we would need to send it, because you're right, it's a lot of excavation, it's a lot of soil movement out of this site.
Yeah, and I don't know if conversations have been had with the town about the potential property ownership responsibilities the town might be on the hook for as a result of that testing. I'm not saying I'm not against the testing, I think, if anything is found and gets cleaned up, that could be a tremendous asset to the watershed and to the wetlands. But if these conversations haven't happened yet, I think the town should have some discussions with the LSP about what potentially they could be on the hook for as property owners.
Yeah, and we can certainly, I anticipate that our LSP will be complete with his assessment next week, so we can certainly have those conversations and we'd be happy to discuss that. I mean, there is finding something, but I would say that I discussed this with him, and I definitely asked the question, and we have experience in the Mystic of finding things that we didn't want to find. So
and there's a long history. there's a
there's,
long
yeah.
history.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So it's definitely a concern, you know, but I think his assessment, at least to me, was that he didn't feel like what he was seeing historically or any of the things that he had seen in the vicinity. That's another thing. You know, obviously it's not necessarily just what's on the site, but what's maybe adjacent to the site or upstream of the site. It didn't appear to him to be of a concern, but it's certainly something to come back to
Yeah.
before we actually do the testing. And we can pull the samples. That's another thing too. We can pull the samples while we're doing the board, hold on to them to some extent. I think some types of things I think have to be sampled immediately, but.
Yeah.
Anika, I'm just going to piggyback on that. I think you and I both keyed in on the same thing. You know, I think I've got the same comments as you, Anika, and the same point to you. I think ultimately it's a good idea. You need to know what's going on out there. I think timing of that sampling and understanding why now is an important piece, and having that conversation with the LSP I think is an important piece for the town. You know, I think Anika, you said it exactly right. Is ultimately that anything that happens out there, it's going to be a positive of getting it out or treating it. But certainly, if something is found, you know, clocks start. You know, the LSP is required to report it, and then you know the town is then forced into a position to react. It's good to just make sure we're making decisions on when to sample this at the right time, even if we suspect there's nothing. Just because you know you could put the property owner in a position where they have to react and then respond to DEP and become part of MCP. Is the idea of the sampling to come up with estimates of costs for disposal? Is that the intent?
Yeah, I think that's the majority of it, is just trying to understand if there are sort of high metals, arsenic, things like that. Like, you know, is it going to be sort of cheaper, $20, $30, or are we talking something more like $80, $90? And we have so much excavation here, you know, it will make a big difference in terms of cost. So that is part of it. Yeah.
Anika, any other questions?
Nope. I just want to make sure it's said in a public meeting that other people in the town need to make sure they understand the ramifications of if something like a metals is detected, or if PCBs are detected. And I'm assuming you're not doing any exotic testing like asbestos.
That is not, yeah, and there's no evidence of those sorts of yeah, exactly what you're saying, sort of exotic, unusual sorts of things. So we're not intending to do that because we don't see any reason to now. And again, I think that's something that we can just also talk about, like maybe there's a limitation in terms of what we sample or we don't sample at all. And I think that's totally fine. That was actually, you know, for us, it's an optional task really for the design. But again, it's kind of what you're saying. The risk is, you know, if you get further down the line and there is something, then that could impact, you know, obviously any further movement. So it's always a balance. Every project's like that.
Yeah. I have another small, totally unrelated follow-up question, and that is the capacity of these areas. What type of precipitation events are you anticipating in this design?
Yeah, so I think this is another thing that we're really trying to figure out in terms of what is coming to the site or how we're getting water to the site. Obviously, if we take a smaller drainage area from, like I was showing you before with Lowell and Willow, you know, we're obviously going to be able to take a lot more bigger events. If we're talking about taking some, you know, basically storms off of Aberjona, so taking sort of a larger storms, flood volumes essentially off of the Aberjona, that is a little bit of a different design, and that doesn't necessarily in terms of like equating it to storm events. I mean, it's a little bit of a different type of a design than what we're talking about with like a purely stormwater only piece, but the functionality would serve the same. But I think that in terms of the storage, we would try to obviously maximize the storage, and we would also have a system in place with overflow and outlet structures and things of that nature, so that I think one of the concerns is always, are you going to flood the paths out, during large events, things like that. And we would obviously, set elevations well, below to give sort of a free board and whatnot for those and those pathways and things, so that, if for some reason, like if we do end up taking it off the Aberjona, that, that doesn't impact the use of the site.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to say, and I promise this last thing on this is, just so you're aware, I know that the residents abutting this property along Willow Street are going to be very interested in knowing about this project and hearing about it. And as usual, I'm sure, the sooner they know about it, even if it's a brainchild, the better.
So Anika, luckily, I hope I'm not. So Anika, luckily, we are spearheading that. So that's coming right from the town with the help of the Mystic River Watershed Association. So there's been some email blasts already, and we're well aware of getting the word out. And I was concerned about that also. So anyone listening tonight who knows people in this area, we have a website, and we're sending out flyers, and there's going to be some signage at the trailheads. Either it's there now or it's going to be there soon, directing you to the website where you'll find a lunch and learn and a public meeting. And we should announce that during this meeting also, but well aware of getting the word out. Thank you, Anika.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the commission? Do you have questions or comments? Okay, I guess I'll just add, Amy, Jen, I think you guys did a great job presenting. I think a couple things that I see here is, just in general, what I'll say is, what's good for the watershed, I think is good for Reading here. And, I do love that you guys were able to think about the connectivity. We put in a lot of effort over the last few years of making this area something that the community can appreciate as well. And I think Chuck always says it best, is like, if you can get the community to appreciate, to have activity and connectivity, and they're going to appreciate it that much more. So it's going to serve dual purposes. So I think that's great that you've been able to kind of think about that as you've been creating this. I guess I do have just a question. Just again, this is a bigger picture of where does this go from here? You guys have an MVP grant to prepare designs. What do you need from the commission? What do you need from the town? What's the process as this thing moves forward? I guess that's a little unclear to me of the overall steps as this thing proceeds.
Well, I can chime in, and then maybe Catherine could talk a little bit about the grant overall. But our process will be just kind of stepping through. Yeah, the grant is a June 30 grant, and so through our process here, we're going to be stepping through a few different deliverables for the town. One is obviously the design submittal package, which includes what we're calling 75% design plan specifications, permitting level design specifications and costs, and that will be reviewed by the town, and we'll get comments from there. And then I think the intent, all things hopefully considered, we complete that work in May, and we try to, get this permitted through the Conservation Commission, which would involve, I think, having another, conversation with you guys virtually or in person, sort of walking the site, maybe depending on obviously COVID and other things. And going from there and hopefully, I mean, that's the schedule right now. We've got a few things that are happening with the design, and obviously the public engagement piece is very critical. So we'd want to have, we obviously don't want to get what they, the cart before the horse, they say, right? We want to make sure we get everybody's feedback as it relates to the community and the town before we get too far ahead. So I think it is in our scope, like I said, to go to the permitting, and hopefully we will get there. But, I think that's sort of dependent on, if we can get, everything aligned and done in that the period till June 30.
Right, and then if we did get to the permitting, we would obviously before the commission with the notice of intent, with a public hearing or, and as Jen mentioned, possibly a site visit with the commission members during that process. But again, I guess it does depend on a couple of factors that we haven't quite ironed out yet.
After that, how does this go from contract documents and plans on a page to getting built? Is that something that the town releases? Is that how does this become something that is a great plan that doesn't necessarily sit on the shelf? Because that's not part of the current grant, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll chime in, and I think it's either Chuck or Catherine after that, but as part of this effort, we are sort of looking at cost benefit analyses of the design as it relates to opportunities to be funded through different sources, such as FEMA, to be able to essentially get it constructed. And I think part of that will then also play into what are the opportunities for other grant funds and or, town matches related to those funds to be able to move forward with the 100%. So I think I haven't been in conversation with the town or Mr. River on those items, but I do believe that, that's sort of the next general step is thinking about, how this design really is going to, impact the town's ability to get funding moving forward.
Thank you. Are there any other items?
Can I just
Go
ask
ahead, Anita.
one follow-up question? Thank you, Mike. So at this point, is our kind of review of this, are we giving our approval for the soil sampling activities? Or do we know when that's going to happen?
You can give your approval. There was
I know it's allowed.
plan that shows where the soil, here it is, where the soil samples are being, and you can see that they're very accessible to the site. And if you've been out there, it's like probably most of the Trails Committee, I know there's a few Trails Committee watching tonight, you'll notice that these areas can, you can get in there and do some sampling without, again, our hurdle is to not cut down any trees. So, any kind of disturbance that can be easily repaired.
Okay. Are they going in with, a small vehicle, or is this going to be hand?
Well, I'm going to let Amy take this question.
I'm probably going to fumble this.
She hasn't talked.
Yeah, it's a small trail rig. It's about
We haven't heard from you.
5 feet wide and what, 13 feet long. Is that right, Jen?
13 feet tall, I think.
Tall.
Yeah.
Oh, so tall. So the intent there would be to come in off of Lowell Street to sample within the areas that are sort of in those pink blobs. With the intent of not knowing exactly where. Obviously, the whole area wouldn't be excavated or anything like that. It would just be within that general vicinity that would want to be able to do a soil boring. I think we're planning on 8 to 10 between the pink blobs to the sort of east of the property, and coming in off of Willow Street and the path that's there along the MBTA right of way to access the other site without crossing any wetlands and in accordance with your bylaw staying out of the 35-foot no touch, so that it could be done under administrative approval. But we did consider we wanted to present this sort of design concept and share the overall project with the commission, knowing that we were going to come back to you at some point for permitting. It made sense to cover that and, talk a little bit about the soil lines as well, all in one meeting.
Yeah, so we did
Yeah.
the soil borings for the commissioners that were here before, Ivy Street and over at the Timberneck Swamp area. So we did that with an administrative approval. It was very similar to this because they went out on that existing water line and did the borings, and then, very similar. It doesn't come up a lot. Engineering does a few throughout the year, maybe one or two. It doesn't come up a lot, but I always try to get the commission notice, and it makes sense in my opinion to know what's going on. And I always say, when you're at Market Basket and someone says, "Hey, you're on the commission, what's going on at Millet?" You need to know. It makes sense to know something about it and to be informed. So that's my thought behind this.
I guess what I would say, I don't think there's any reason we just can't pass under administrative order. From wetlands perspective, I don't know that I have any issues. I think that the track rig, it's probably a small track geoprobe that you're getting in there is not going to be an issue, knowing that the two areas that you've got and kind of the access back there. I guess I would just reiterate what Anika was hitting on before, of just understanding the sampling and why, less from a conservation perspective and more from the town's property and the liability if items are found within that testing, and what that reaction needs to be shortly after. So yeah, Chuck, I guess I would say is I don't see an issue with an administrative order on the conservation side.
Great.
This is no different than the other ones. All right. Any other items?
I think on this, we just want to take the opportunity to let everybody, so you would certainly want to field a few questions, maybe not, I don't know how many they're going to be, but you want to field a few questions. But just before we get into that, I just want to invite anybody who's listening or may listen in the future that on Tuesday, March 30th at noon, we'll have a lunch and learn. And at Tuesday, April 27th at 6:30, we're going to have a public meeting. These will be an opportunity to ask questions about this work to the engineers and that's the engineers of the Mystic River Watershed Association, of Horsley Witten, and the town engineer, anything that comes up about this project. And you can review this project and at their website, and the page is mysticriver.org/wetlands. Again, and there'll be a sign at the trailheads on Lowell Street, Willow Street, and Hunt Street, and just will direct you to the website. And you can always get a hold of me if you have any questions, Chuck Taroni in the Conservation Office, or Alex Rozicki in the Engineering Department. So sure, back to you, Mike.
Thanks. Chuck, how, well, there's going to be an email blast associated with those two meetings, and they're going to be Zoom meetings, I presume.
So Jane Wellman is doing that portion of it, and we have social media, and there's a I think there's a Facebook page, and there's also the town website page. So there's a lot of ways to do that, and the engineering department can do I think it's called reverse 911. I don't know if but it's that phone call that you get to. So there's all that talk, but but
Okay.
we've been told to make sure that we, kind of shake all the trees and make sure people know about this. And so we can get the input, which is important because, this is an area, like I said, it wasn't even opened up a couple of years ago, and we wanted to put a trail in here, and we got, a lot of questions. It's become kind of like a unique and loved site by most of the abutters. I think that anytime you can get into an area without having to bushwhack through it, it's great. We hear a lot of positive feedback from people. So we just want to make sure that we get back in touch with those people and make sure that their input is captured in these two meetings that I've just announced.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll open it up if members of the public have questions or comment. Karen, I see you've got one. I'll unmute. Karen, if you could just introduce yourself, if you're able to.
Thank you, Mike. Karen Herrick, Reading Select Board. Thanks for inviting me. And so this is news to me, so this is great. And I think the public outreach plan that you've described, those are a couple of my questions. That's going to be wonderful. We want to make sure, all of those abutters aren't surprised. So getting it on the town website and, maybe in a couple places, right on the front page, i.e. it's happening now, and as well as your conservation page. And then the lunch and learns are great, and social media, the town of Reading social media, and that could be shared to other large groups. But I think based on what we learned with the parking, we definitely just want to make sure we actually send notices to direct abutters. I think that's going to be really important, and I look forward to learning more. One other quick question. So at this point, does DPW know that this is happening, or will they know, or will they be invited to these same informational sessions?
Sure. Let me try. So Alex Ruzicki, who is the town engineer, this is town engineer, stormwater engineer. He's been a part of this project longer than I have. So they're well aware of this, and Alex is on top of this. So it's not an issue that the engineering department doesn't know about it. I think other departments need to know about that. One of the things I forgot to mention about getting the word out is we do plan on doing mailing to 300 feet from the property lines of this work site. So that's in the works, and we have a flyer that'll go out to those people. So anyone 300 feet away will be getting something in the mail about this project.
Excellent. That sounds great. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all for presenting. I think this has been very helpful. Chuck, the one thing I would say is, and maybe you've already done this, and you've indicated a lot of access to this. Oh, Dave.
It's Scott. I noticed one of the people in the audience, the name's Kim. I can't pronounce the last name, but I can see someone raising their hand.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's Will. I see Will on the screen.
Hey, Will. Go ahead. I just gave you the opportunity to unmute. Thank you, Scott, for seeing that.
Yeah, Will Finch here with Kim. We're involved in the Reading Trails Committee, and we're responsible for building much of the trail through that site. I'm a previous Conservation Commission member in Reading, and I'm excited about the opportunity for Reading to benefit the entire Abidjona watershed. And so anything we can do to expedite this project, I will do.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, so I went to the Trails Committee last week, and I gave an overview of this project. And I think Will and Kim and other members were very excited. They were the first ones in this area. I think they highlighted it for everyone else. So we might have not even thought about the Millet Psalms and Morgan Land. So, you know, I think that the town, the commission, the Mystic River Watershed Associations appreciates the access route to our work site. Thanks, Will. Kim, Trails Committee.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anything else, Chuck, that we need at this point? I think this has been
No,
helpful, and
I
it's
think
great to hear
that's
about
it.
the project.
Sure. I think one of the things is to, you know, Karen and the town, and I think that in public services, we really understand that it's really important to get all the information from the abutters. We really want to know and address those concerns early instead of later on in the cycle. So if anyone listening, the commission, anyone, you know, this is going to be recorded. It's going to be on RCTV. You can watch this again. I mentioned the Lunch and Learn on March 30th and on April 27th, the public meeting and the website, Mystic River Water, mysticriver.org/water. Let's do it again. mysticriver.org/wetlands. And that'll take you to the site, and there's a lot of information there. You can contact Alex Rozicki in the engineering department, or myself, Chuck Taroni, in the conservation office, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So I think that's what's needed, and then just to kind of go through the process of discovery will take us where we want to be.
All right, thank you all. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, Chuck.
Yeah, if
Old,
you,
new. Go ahead.
yeah, I think everything from here down on the agenda is up to you and what you want to take next.
Got it. Thank you. All right. So why don't we've got 1503. I think I saw Mr. Castellano here. Why don't we get on 1503 Main Street next? Mr. Castellano, yeah. I'll mute you. Just to give a quick recap, and Chuck, maybe you can give a rundown of what we've done. But so at the last meeting, we had 4 items, correct, that we were looking for Mr. Castellano to complete in order to get their certificate of occupancy.
Yes, that's right. We wanted the, geez, if you could just drag that out for a second more, I'll fumble through it.
Yeah.
Hold on. We wanted to get the bonds for lot A and B, and we've received the bonds. We wanted to verify the deed language, which has been done. We wanted to get the acknowledgement from the homeowners that they received a copy of the order of conditions. The one on lot A does not have a phone number associated with it. So I hadn't had a chance to get back to Jim about that, but that's one omission. And that might,
Which one is lot A? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I think it's the one in the front. It's 1505.
1505.
Yeah.
So I have an email transposition between you and the attorney of that buyer, showing that you received that letter of verification on that deed, that you received the letter, that they are aware and they agreed upon that OOC and the work that's outstanding.
Yeah, that's correct, Jim. It just doesn't have a phone number.
Can I give it to you right now?
I don't think you should do that
Yeah,
on a public meeting.
Jim, I think you should just email it. That way we're not giving the homeowner's phone number over public meeting.
Okay, I wish with someone, I knew you needed that number early, because at least I would have given it to you, whenever you needed it. But no one ever said they needed a number. They needed a letter signed. That's all no one ever mentioned a phone number, so.
So Jim, that's mentioned in the order of conditions, which was sent to you and your attorney, and that's why that ended up
Really?
starting to get sent to me.
I didn't realize that's for a phone number.
Yeah, it's in the order of conditions. I'm sorry you didn't realize that.
Okay. So we've got that item out there. What else was out there, Chuck?
So we had clean up the erosion control line and place it where it was approved on the Conservation Commission's approved plan. Additional erosion control in front of the existing barrier. A sketch of the plan. Most of these things have been done. Remove the portion of the retaining wall beyond 35 foot, and then regrade that area, and the Conservation Commission's schedule for the rest of the work that needs to be done. And the only other thing out of that list would be we need to have a discussion about the granite bounds, which are not on site, but would be part of what needs to be on site. I'm not saying that needs to be done now. I just wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah. So and generally that's one of those last things that we look for as part of the closure. So I was at the site last week. My understanding is we saw most of this done. I think Tuesday of last week, Mr. Castellano, you had someone out there to move the rocks, and rocks were removed. And I think you ended up transmitting pictures to Chuck. I think ultimately I ended up going out there a couple times over that Thursday and then again yesterday, and we took some pictures. And so this is ultimately what was left. We have the rocks that have been removed, but thank you, Chuck. There you go. But in this area, that's really all that was done, and this is how the site was left.
Well,
I guess.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll let you finish.
I know you've had back and forth. So no, I think we just lost the picture though.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted that to stop.
No. So I know you had some back and forth with Chuck. I know Chuck had reached out to me of, is this what we were looking for? I ultimately felt like this was not what we had asked for. Going back to what we had been talking about was removing the retaining wall, the stone wall in the 35-foot line, and I think what was ultimately voted on at the last meeting was essentially rebating it to outside the 35-foot line. What I know you ended up removing the rocks, but what we're left with is this essentially filled land that's vertically cut, unstable. So at this point, I don't think this is complete. I think we're still looking for this area to be treated as it was shown on the permit.
Well, like I recall in the last meeting, the 4 items were to put a bigger DEP sign out front, and I did that. To provide the additional $5,000 bond, I did that. The letters showing the deed referencing and both owners of the homes to acknowledge that this work and the OOC they're aware of it. I did that. And the way I understood it was to remove the rocks. And believe me when I tell you, I wouldn't have mobilized the $3,000 a day crew to show up out there just to remove the rocks and install hay bales. If I could have removed this dirt, I would have. We have 18 to 24 inches of frost. It's not doable right now. With the small little rubber tracked excavator to dig this out right now, I don't know what you guys or all of you think that I don't want to do it. I've never, ever voiced any language or any of my tones saying I wouldn't do anything. I've agreed to every single thing you asked me to do. But if I can't physically perform the work because the dirt is frozen, I don't understand what the difficulty of you guys accepting that. You have a $10,000 bond of my money in position to hold.
Mr. Castellano, we've talked about this bond. So the bond was issued as part of the original order of conditions.
Okay, so forget that.
That is not left. That is not meant for.
Okay.
You're holding that over your head.
Okay, forget I said the $10,000 bond. How about the common sense of the dirt just being solid frost? Why wouldn't I want to do it? What do you guys think I'm going to do here? You think I'm going to run away and not do the work? You think I don't want to do the work?
I'm not sure, Mr. Castellano. I mean, frankly, these pictures seem to me like something that can still be moved. You know, this is
Mike,
something that can still be
your
reworked.
hydraulics license, Mike, you can't dig this out with a small little 7,000-pound excavator. It will slide all over the place. I'm telling you, why would I say this? Why would I? Listen, I don't know what else to say to you guys. We voted on it. You guys voted on it last meeting. You voted on those 4 items to remove the rocks, put a new sign in, give us the verification that the owners know, and give us the bond. And I did all 4 of those to the best of my ability. This dirt is not going to be removed until it's thawed. There's nothing else I can do. Believe me, if I could have moved the rocks out and moved that dirt out beyond the 35-foot zone, it would be done. Believe me, I wouldn't waste my time doing this stuff with you guys. I'm not into torturing you people, nor torturing myself, but I can't remove frozen ground and grade it to a finished position in this condition. I'm sorry. There's nothing else I can do for you. I want to do it, and I will do it, but I don't know what else to do to make you people comfortable enough to move forward and sign the occupancy permits. You have a compliance certificate that has to be done, and I'm going to do it. I've done every single thing you've asked.
I don't know that I agree with that, Mr. Castellato. We're looking for this area that there was a structure put within the 35-foot zone and filling put within the 35-foot zone. We've asked for it to be removed. I mean, I guess I just disagree with the premise that this can't be excavated. I mean, have you been out there? Like, I don't know what this looked like Tuesday when the guys were out there. I know it was colder last week, but it's just not this. That's not what I'm seeing when I've gone out there.
So let me just, and I'm just going to like, everyone can just digest what Mike and Jim were just saying. So I think this, to me, first came up on December 31st, 2020, when there was a site visit, and then I generated a list of items that needed to be done, and I sent it to Jim, and it was sent on December 31st, 2020 at 1:38, and it just lists off a few things, but it does mention the unauthorized grading and the unauthorized retaining wall, and the fact that that needs to be removed, and then the clear cutting in the front of the building. There's other things that it mentions, but those were the things I just want to make sure that everyone understands, that before even the first of the year, we were talking about this grading, and Jim knew about that. There's our minutes from 1/13, 2021, that Jim came to the meeting, and we talked about the grading, we talked about the stones, we talked about a lot of things on that meeting. It was really the first meeting before anything happened, the $5,000 bond, the grading, the stones, removing things back. Again, Jim, Mr. Castellano, he said that he'd come back to the January 27th meeting and that he has no problem taking care of that stuff. And then I got an email from Jim on January 15th. And there was just a discussion about the small boulders that were encroaching the 35-foot line. And I had mentioned that the 35-foot line was something where, this is a line where we often allow work on the other side of it. But I said, you either need to get a variance or remove the stones and the grading. And the grading's mentioned a lot in the emails. So we started talking about stones, and I think Jim locked in on the stones, but it's stones and grading. It's any work beyond the 35-foot you would need a variance for. And I'm just trying to show that through the next couple of months that we talked about removing the stones, removing the grading, returning this back to what it was, or in my opinion, always getting a variance. I mean, I wasn't trying to lock Jim into doing any work if he felt he couldn't rip the ground apart because it was frozen. I mean, it only takes the amount of time that it takes to prepare a request for a variance and then to get it to the commission. We've been doing this for 2 months. Jim didn't attend the second meeting in January of 2021. And on the first meeting of February 10th, 2021, it was brought up by Martha Moore, who said, you know, the DEP file sign's not even installed in its right spot or not even installed. And we asked that a month ago. So that's kind of a history of what's been going on, just kind of waiting for things to happen. I did mention to Jim that, and he knows that I don't think that the ground is sufficiently frozen enough to impair this work. I understand that there's an argument about smoothly grading or regrading what was taken out of there to, you know, to do this all in one fell swoop. But this is not approved by the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission has been saying, you know, since the end of December that this material has to go. You know, I would have thought there would have been some time where this material, and it's not only on the side of the house, it's in the back too. I've kind of mocked this up myself. It's kind of this area. This black line represents where the boulders would go after the fact. And this area here, this hatched area, this is illegal fill, basically, from our regulations, and it's an unapproved project. So, you know, it was identified early and in time for it to be removed, and it wraps around the back of the property, and it's going to require that the step that comes out of the basement is looked at differently. I think that there's going to have to be a platform built in that area.
Can I interject there? So
sure.
In a no structure zone, right? You want me now to build something there. So it's like an oxymoron. Rip the dirt out where it's level where people can walk out, but now build a structure to get out, a set of stairs of some type in a no structure zone. Okay,
Yeah, sure, Jim. If you have a minute, I'll just explain that to you. So what ended up happening is, so your survey person came in here last year, and I think you were in Florida or something like that, but you went around to present this project, and the commission had some questions about where the deck was going and the location of that grade level basement door. And the commission actually wanted it around the side. In this picture, it shows it right where the AC compressors are. And but you had already cut it into the back foundation, and they said it was okay to leave it. But you know, so that came to the commission and was talked about in a minor plan change was accepted for that. So I understand that someone else did that, your surveyor did that, and that's probably why you don't know. But we've always been under the impression that somehow you were going to build some platform, some steps, and it even says in the decision that, you know, there's not going to be any walkway to it or anything like that. It's just going to be a step out from the back door. So that's why we're saying, yeah, you have to build like a platform, because it was discussed.
But whose jurisdiction is that? Is that the building department to say I can build something in that no build zone, or your jurisdiction?
So the town, so it's just think of like layers of a cake. So we all eat the same cake, but there's different layers in it, and each department adds a different layer. So the Conservation Commission is totally in charge of our layer. We don't tell the building department what to do, and they don't tell us what to do. But you can't move forward with your building project until the Conservation Commission says it's okay to do it in this area. So if you're saying, can the building department say this has to go there and that's all there is to it? I think that's not, I think you have two means of egress in this building, and that's not required. So that's nothing that, I might have even talked to Glenn about it, but we're not saying eliminate that exit. We're saying the grading that takes up the entire backyard or the entire back area along with this piece on the side, wasn't thought about and wasn't discussed and wasn't approved during the initial conversation that we developed the order of conditions with. And even it didn't even come up when, I can't think of your surveyor's name.
Andy Bramhall.
Bramhall, yeah, Andy Bramhall. He didn't bring it up either, and he was at the commission for 2 meetings, and he developed some plans for us, but he was mostly talking about this area with the deck. So, anyways, that explains why we're talking about a platform.
Well, like I said in every one of these meetings, I will remove the material. I'll clean it up. If you tell me I should build a set of stairs of some type to access that back basement door, I'll do so. But in order to do that, I'll have to dig down 4 feet, put some sonotubes in, and to do all that digging, grading, manipulation of soil, it has to be above 35 degrees to do so. We're here tonight, at least I thought I was coming here tonight, to go over the 4 items that were voted on at the last meeting: the sign, the bond, the verification letter, and removal of the boulders so I could get an occupancy permit. The houses have both been signed off. Actually, the front house, as crazy as this is, the front house that we're discussing has already been signed off and people are living in it. So I'm just trying to get an occupancy permit for the rear house so I can close and let someone move into that one. And with this work to be done, I want to do it. I just can't do it right now when the ground is not frozen and it's safe to dig with a machine, so we're not sliding into the wetlands down that slope or sliding into the side of the house or any of that. I mean, I want to make sure it's a safe environment. I want to do it the right way. It's just doing it in this cold, frozen environment is not the correct way to do it. And it's not actually me that does it with the machines. This is Iovino Excavating that absolutely refuses to do it. They said, Jim, we're not going back there to create damage, maybe hurt one of my guys, slide into the wetlands and cause an issue. We'll do it when the weather permits us to. But, you know, I begged them to remove these boulders and put hay bales in, and they did so. So, I mean, I don't know what else I can do for you guys. I haven't been, you know, defiant or say I'm not going to do it. We're going to do it. But I mean, what else can I say? I mean, we're going over this for 2.5 hours last meeting. You guys are either going to say, yes, you can give me an occupancy permit, or no, you're not going to give me the occupancy permit for that rear house. I don't know what else to say. Last time we had this meeting, you guys voted for Chuck to sign off on it, and he didn't sign off on it. So I don't know what else to do here.
Well, that's not correct. The list of four items were not complete.
I wish someone else on the board would at least give some that maybe to voice their opinion, to say that I'm not crazy to think that it was said, or maybe I have to get the minutes to this meeting from the town and bring this to my attorney, because that was what the vote was on. Remove the boulders, put the sign up, verification letters, in the bond. Those were the 4 items. I'm tired of playing this nonsense with you. This isn't high school.
Jim, you didn't take your opportunity to review the minutes. Well, we don't have the minutes available, but you didn't take the opportunity to look at the RCTV link that we sent you.
It's ridiculous.
You did not.
For you, Chuck.
Jim,
for you.
Jim, you did not take the opportunity to listen to the RCTV link that we provided to you.
Jim, I had to go back to the RCTV link to make sure that because my interpretation is exactly what Chuck is showing. That's what I was looking for. Hold on, Jim, you're muted.
Mike, be careful with him.
Yep, I know. Go ahead, Jim. So, Jim, I went back to the minutes to review what we had voted for. We voted twice on 2 different items, and my interpretation is exactly what Chuck has described here. He said it much more eloquently than I had started explaining it. So with that, I mean, I guess I opened this up. You know, the last meeting, I know we've gone through this a couple times, but we voted for, so I think that there were 2 votes. It went through the list. It talked about the removal of the rocks. I think there was a clarification made of what that constituted, and it said, well, is it just remove or is it remove and rebate? And we talked about the alignment and what that potentially meant, and essentially what it meant to get outside the 35-foot zone. At that time, Mr. Castellano, it wasn't presented to us that you couldn't do what we're showing here.
I never mentioned that we couldn't tear this dirt out. I never mentioned that it was frozen. Are you serious, Mike? I never said that.
We talked about
Really?
frozen ground and grading, but this is different, Jim. I mean, what we're talking about, if you're able to get the stones out, if you had frost heave issues, if you had frozen stone to the rock, those would be stuck as well.
Okay. Mike, do what you got to listen. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I've said all I can say. I think it's an embarrassment to the process. This is the most unprofessional.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to the commission. Ultimately, we've got the pictures here. I know most of you didn't have an opportunity to get out to the site, but I think I've been at least clear with my interpretation of what I'm looking for, as far as the item of removing the structure from the 35-foot zone. But I'm willing to open it up to the commission and make sure we all are on the same page of what we're looking for. So.
And just, you could also direct Mr. Castellano to get a variance, and we could vote on that at the next meeting, and he could leave this dirt there. I mean, that seems to be something that, I don't know if he's just thinking about it like the day of the meeting, but not the minutes, but the videos out there, and he could watch that, and he's saying, look, I want to get the minutes, and I want to look at the minutes, and I want to find out what was said. And I think it was important. That's why I sent him the link. And I was like, hey, please, so we're all on the same page. Please look at the video and look at it to the end. So the commission could direct Mr. Castellano to get a variance for this area. And that would eliminate any problems with the frost. And it's been 2 months. We could have had the variance and moved on at this point. Jim, you're muted. And we're going to leave you muted until the commission speaks.
I gave it.
Okay, so
go ahead, Jim.
You mentioned this to me in the very beginning about going for a variance, and you told me that it wouldn't be granted. That's what you said, Chuck.
No, I didn't. I didn't say it wouldn't be granted.
Okay.
Anything over the 25-foot line is not granted. In every email, I had to review everything for tonight's meeting. It says you have to remove the stuff or you have to get a variance. I mean,
Chuck, when we were out on the meeting, when we had our face-to-face group meeting, we walked out back here and you said right to me, you said you could go for a variance, but we won't give it to you. That's exactly what you said. Why would I listen?
You misunderstood what I said.
What are you going to do tonight? Get your vote over, and I'll
somehow you misunderstood, Jim. The commission will look at any situation. I think that, it's the 25-foot that we protect. The 35-foot's a no structure zone.
But build a structure, but no structure zone, but build a structure in it now. Okay, I just understand, so we're clear. A 35-foot no structure zone, but Jim, dig the dirt out and build me a structure to get into the basement.
The dirt's considered a structure also, Jim. So that was an accommodation that the commission made for you.
Oh.
Jim, I think you got to understand that came before us. I think Chuck explained this very well. It's like that came before us as a minor plan change.
I'm here to adhere to anything you say tonight. So why don't you guys talk with the group, vote, do whatever you guys do, and let me know where I stand, and I'll take care of it. But I'm not going to take care of it until the weather allows it. I'm not doing it. It's unsafe. It's undoable. And my excavating company will not come out there and rip this apart in the winter. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to, you can mute me for the rest of the night and I'll just listen on. I just want to hear what you guys have to say now.
All right. I'll turn it over to the commission. I guess I think I've made my opinion clear. My expectation is that the structure that was put inside within 35-foot is removed, and that's what I'm looking to see. Dave, I know you've got I think you have an opinion here, so I'll let you.
I was
There you go.
actually out at this site, happened to be going by the site when the excavator was on site, and I saw the guy popping the rocks out, and the ground was frozen. And there's no doubt that the ground is frozen inside the rocks at that time. I mean, there was still, the day that I was out there was still 10 inches of snow on top of this dirt. That day that the excavator was out there. So they were removing the stones, and there was no doubt that the earth that was there behind the stones was frozen. I don't know if there's anyone on this commission that's ever driven an excavator, but I have. Driven a backhoe, excavator, okay? And if you're doing frozen dirt, basically all you get is little handfuls, little shovelfuls of dirt that just scrape up from the teeth of the excavator or the backhoe bucket. So when I was there and I was observing what was done, I had in my mind that we had asked Mr. Castellano to remove and rebait those rocks back to the 35-foot line. Now, I don't know where the 35-foot line is here. I see it, there's a red line, but certainly that's not rebated to the 35-foot line. But when I was out there, I can attest to the fact that that soil was frozen when the excavator was there at that time. That was last Tuesday that occurred. So I was out there the day, as I said, the excavator was there and the dirt was frozen. One of the things that I also, you know, I think that the best case scenario for this would be for Mr. Castellano to apply for a variance, because it makes sense for the change in grade that's there to actually have something similar to what the rocks that were there to hold the soils back. There was a significant change in grade from the existing topography that was there before this house was built. Going down to the wetland line and the 25-foot line, there was a very significant drop off at this point. So that was part of somewhat the original topography of that land. So there was a significant change in elevation at that point. So it would seem to me the smart thing to do at this point would be to have some kind of to make some kind of a accommodation for a variance to allow the rock structures or rock wall or something to go back in there. Because as I look at this, when I look at that other thing that Chuck had up there, the red lines, if this was all those soils were rebated to the line that Chuck has shown with the 35-foot line, if you had to bring that into compliance with our regulation for the 1 to 3 slope, you'd have to take that post for the deck out. You'd never be able to bring that into the 1 to 3 compliance. It wouldn't be able to be done unless you took that deck post out.
Isn't the rocks going to hold up that 15 inches of soil? I mean, that was my thought all along. So you wouldn't need to do the slope.
But the rocks, so where do you put the rocks in the corner of the house?
So, you know,
outside the 35-foot line. That's why what makes sense to me is to actually have
Can you put the plan back up?
and actually apply for a variance. Because at the corner of the house, you have the red line going right to the corner of the house. And I remember that the 35-foot line is really close to that back corner. So how are you going to get a 3-to-1 slope at the very corner of that house without putting rocks or something there, which is going to bring you outside the 35-foot line again?
I just see the rocks on the 35-foot line holding back the fill, and it's not a lot of fill. So it's, and we even talked about it, I think you and me, and I said maybe there would be a step kind of like created in this area here to get down to that lower level, but that's all in back of the 35-foot line. I don't think we need to design this project. I think it's all about, I don't know. So it seems to me that no attempt was made like today, it seemed to me that the soil was very loose. Some of these pictures are from me going out there today. Mike went out there yesterday. I kicked the soil. It was loose underneath about, I don't know, what I thought was about 3 inches of more of a crusty area, but that didn't seem to appear to be very solid. There were tracks. I have pictures of tracks from the machine along the top, and there were boot marks there, not mine. I was making really good boot marks today, but there were boot marks from, I don't know, when the work was being done.
That also was, you're talking 10 days ago too. You know?
Yeah, I know it might have been different, but again, I could have signed that anytime up until, as a matter of fact, when Jim sent me the pictures, I was kind of surprised to see the same old picture he sent me a month ago. So, or whatever it was, 3 weeks ago. I thought that there was going to be an attempt to move that back. You know, we're not asking that it's moved back and graded out perfectly. We're just saying remove that section of the fill that was not authorized out of there. You know, feel free to just beyond that line because it wasn't approved. And if you can't do that, if there's a reason and there, you know, and I think it's reasonable to say 2 options. And that's why I disagree with Jim that I said it would never be approved. Now, how can I tell you if the commission's going to approve something or not? But the thing is, you have 2 options. Either get out there and do it and get the machinery that will make it happen, or apply for a variance. And it's been 2 months and 10 days at this point. You know, overall, it seems to be pretty minuscule. Everything else is done, in my opinion, about this site. I'd like to get that phone number. It was part of the order of conditions. It says exactly what we need from each of the buyers. That's the only thing that's not there. As the administrator, I don't make up, this is not my opinion. I just do what the commission asks me to do and what it says in the order of conditions. You have to come to the commission to make changes.
I think we also in the last meeting that we had, we gave, that I understood, 4 conditions. 4 condition was to rebate the rocks, to do the sign, to give the bond, and to get the legal paper, and a certificate of occupancy would be granted. That was my understanding after the last meeting.
Yeah, and Dave, within that discussion about rebating the rocks, there was discussion about getting everything outside the 35-foot zone.
So at this point, it's, if you went out there without what Chuck just drew on the picture, would you know where the 35-foot line is? If you went out there today, would you be able to point out and tell me where the 35-foot
the 35-foot line is shown on this plan. I mean, the 35-foot line is shown on this plan.
I understand, but if you,
and everyone has access to that plan.
If you are going out there and you're assessing whether he did rebate those rocks to the 35-foot line, what are you using for a basis of understanding whether he did it or not, or whether he accomplished that task?
The basis that I'm using, Dave, is the pictures of what's left there. That this is a totally disturbed. Yeah, he by the wording of what we said, he removed rocks.
Right.
But that's not what we're looking. We're looking for removal of the rock wall. That includes what it's retaining.
Right.
That is not just I picked up a few rocks and I got them out of the way.
Right.
Dave, that's why I went through the emails from the beginning of the year that we were always talking about the work beyond the 35-foot zone.
Yeah.
How would I tell if it was, it's, you know, we're not, so if I wanted to be accurate, if the commission said, boy, you know, it has to be exact, well, Jim would have to have his surveyor survey in the 35-foot line. Right. But I think generally we know where this area is. The debris or the the fill and the stone are so far over that it couldn't be, it couldn't be something that we didn't say anything about. It needed to be addressed. It came up, as soon as like this, what's up there now, we see the 35-foot line. And it's not something new. You've been on the commission a long time. We always talk about, we do what we approved. This is what come back. It says in the order of conditions, come back if you've made changes. They knew that. They came back once. And even during that process, when they came back and talked about, they never talked about putting in that retaining wall. That retaining wall is new. It's also something that we kind of have to approve, but it's not as severe as being across the 35-foot line. It was never approved beyond the 35-foot line into the 40-foot line or wherever it goes. That still has to be addressed when he gets his as-built plan and he gets his certificate of compliance. But for this here, for this kind of in the no zone, the no-go zone, it needed to be addressed because it's an area that the commission really looks after. And that's why I came to you, and that's why it's become such a deal.
I think we're getting confused with two different things. What I was talking about was what we agreed to in the last meeting in order to get a certificate of compliance, not to bring this to final grade and finished grade. So I don't want to confuse the two issues.
Yeah, I understand that.
A lot more work that needs to be done, before the CO2 gets in the final as-built and everything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the four, what I thought were the four tenets that we agreed on, that Mr. Castellano had to do in order to get a certificate of compliance so he could have a closing on the house.
Yes, I understand that. But, and I would just say that you're entitled to your opinion of what you thought we were talking about. I know where Mike thought he was talking about. I think we need to find out what the rest of the commission thought we were talking about. Because we know where you stand. I know where Mike stands. I don't have a vote.
Yeah. I went back and I listened to the tape, Chuck. It is clear that he was supposed to rebate to the 35-foot line. That was something that we said should be done in order to get the certificate of compliance. That was one thing.
All right, so that's not happened.
Pardon?
That didn't happen.
Yeah, well, I think he told you that he couldn't do it because the ground was frozen.
Well, so I don't actually, I don't actually want to lead this discussion. I think Mike should lead this discussion.
So there's this whole other separation then, Dave. If the ground was frozen, if that's the issue, then did they meet what we said, or was the ground frozen? And that's like I just keep on getting two excuses of either we did exactly what we told you to do, or we didn't do it because the ground is frozen. And it's like, well, no, this is what we said. Well, we didn't do that piece because it was frozen. I think if that were the level, then on Tuesday, what we needed was a call of here's where it's at, here's my problem, here's the struggle, here's why I can't get this done. And we needed to make decisions. And frankly, unfortunately, that puts it into this gray area. But what I see, if it couldn't happen on Tuesday, look, I wasn't out there. I didn't see what the ground condition was. I didn't see how frozen it was. But frankly, what happened is not what we asked for.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So I didn't go back and listen to the tape from last week, but I guess my understanding from listening to as you said, the 2 hours of conversation was that if the boulders could be removed, we couldn't leave the 15-inch shelf there, that if it rained the next day, it would wash away into the 25-foot. So I guess I would have assumed that if the boulders could have been wiggled out and moved, at least some of that chunk of earth while someone's there could have been moved, not finished graded, but at least a sign of removing the earth. That's where I stand. I feel like we're gonna have 4 days of 58 and 65 degree weather. I'm starting construction next week, breaking ground. So maybe by the next 2 weeks, if we can come back, it can be done. I mean, or wait a month for variance. I guess I'm not versed enough to understand which one's faster or better. But, maybe, you know, if you went there to do that and the ground was frozen, but you can't leave the shelf there, maybe it was too quick. I don't know. Last time I remember, we talked about middle of March to end of March was a realistic goal to do it all in one swoop. So suppose it was a good effort, but that's what I thought, it would have been removed, or at least chunks of it tried to get out of there. So that's my vote.
Thank you, Carl. John, Martha. Go ahead, Martha.
I did see that the sign is appropriately attached onto the pole in the front, so I can vouch for that. I drove in the driveway, but I couldn't really see, and I didn't get out of my car to see the condition of the stones and the dirt. Is it true that the house that's currently in the picture that we're seeing is actually being lived in at this point with that drop off in the backyard where the rocks got pulled out? That seems kind of dangerous to me. And is it the other house at the far end of the driveway that we're trying to get a certificate of occupancy for? That I'm confused.
Yes, that's correct, Martha. So just to Chuck hit on this a little bit. So it was this, I think it was New Year's Eve, December 31st, that we gave certificate of occupancy for this house here that we're dealing with. But at that time, we said with the conditions of, there's a lot of work to be done at the overall properties, and here's the list of things that need to be done before occupancy would be given at the second one.
But also, you know, remember that that came in 12th hour, last minute.
Yeah.
No one had been prepared to check this out. And I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about building, engineering. You know, even to this day, the engineering department has not signed off on the occupancy. The Conservation Commission is not the final signature that Jim needs to get this occupancy. So the agreement back then was, you have this first house and you have this other house that's not finished. We're fine. All right, go ahead. We're okay with signing off on this one, but you have that other house, and before that one gets signed off on, we need all this stuff cleaned up. Now, Jim was okay with that, but then someone came in and bought the house, and you know, they want to move in, and I get that, and I understand all that. What I don't understand is all that opportunity and all that warm weather that this information or this that we gave him and that list of things to do was just, instead of action, instead of actual work, it was more just telling us that he couldn't do it instead of showing us that it couldn't be done, or calling me out to the site and saying, you know, look, this is, see how this is not working. Here's like 6 inches of material that we can't get through.
Okay.
Anika?
I'm just of similar mind with you, Mike, and with Carl. It's just pretty straightforward to me.
Thank you. Scott or John?
Yeah, I have to say that I'm a little surprised that none of the fill has been removed. I mean, I think I remember discussing that there wouldn't be any sort of fine grading, that wouldn't be possible, but I see the ledge there, and I would have thought that, some attempts would have been made to remove some of that fill.
Okay. John?
I think I'm of a similar mind as Anika and Mike, I guess. I don't remember exactly what I said last meeting. I haven't had a chance to look back at the tape, so I don't know like exactly where everything was left. But I feel like if the rush had come out, then some of the grading could have been done at the same time.
All right. So, I mean, Mr. Castellano, I think we've got a pretty clear path of what our interpretation was. You know, I think we've laid out an option. If you think this is something that has to sit and you are looking for a variance, that you come to the next meeting and look for a variance on that structure. But, you know, I think the interpretation of what we were expecting to be done is fairly clear.
No, I totally understand what you want done, but when the machine was there, we would have removed it. You guys, you know, you can do any excavation in this type of climate with a big machine, but with the size of the machine that fits there, that has to drive across septic tanks and has to fit between that little 6-foot area behind the house. It's a little small machine. It doesn't have the thrusting and the pulling power of a typical excavator. You're just painting this with a broad brush. You're making it sound like I'm not willing to do the work. I don't know what else to say. I'm a 57-year-old businessman. I'm not a little kid. There's nothing else I can say other than if we could remove the dirt with the small machine that fits there, we would have. This isn't as easy as you think in freezing weather. I know we've got a couple warm days, but I'm just telling you, with a big machine, we could dig. We're blasting in different areas in Wilmington, and we can dig with giant machines, but a giant machine isn't what I can bring over these septic tanks. A giant machine doesn't fit in that little back corner between the silt sock and the foundation of the house. You're talking about a specialty piece of equipment that has a little, you know, quarter-yard bucket that picks up little scoops of dirt at once. With the minute you put your pressure down with the bucket, it skips right across this frozen ground. I don't understand why you're painting me as a dishonest person. I'm disappointed, but I don't know what else to say to you. Going for a variance, it's ridiculous because in 30 days we'll be able to remove the dirt. The issue here is this little area is holding up $1.1 million sale on the back house. Put the money part aside. A family can't move into the house they bought out back because of I didn't remove this dirt. Do you really think if I could have removed this dirt, I would be as stupid to defy the board, just to defy the board because I don't want to do it? I mobilized 3 men, an excavator and a bobcat, and an excavator and a dump truck to remove the boulders. The boulders are solid, they pop out of the way.
So Jim, when is this out here? How long is this out here till?
Excuse me, let me finish. The boulders pop out of the way, they get picked up with the thumb of the machine and they get put in the dump truck. To dig this dirt out, we couldn't do it with the machinery.
Jim, how long is this like this? When's the soonest time that you can do this?
Listen, how long have you lived in New England, Mike?
How long? All my life.
All right, me too.
Jim.
So I remember having freezing snowstorms in the middle of April. So I can't tell you if the weather stays like it is for today and tomorrow for the next week or so, I'll rip it out in 2 weeks. But my point is, if the weather changes from today, we have this meeting 3-4 days, a week from now, we get a snowstorm. Well, how can I tell you what I can't promise you something, but in your right mind, in common sense law, why would I not remove this dirt after mobilizing a crew? I'm selling $1 million.
I can't figure it out either, Jim, frankly.
Listen,
I can't. You know,
so
we've
why
had
wouldn't you
days.
understand? So why wouldn't you believe me that it's frozen? The little piece of equipment that we have to fit behind that building doesn't pull the dirt out. I don't understand what you guys, why wouldn't I do it?
Have you thought that maybe we're disappointed that there's 7 yards of fill over the line? I mean, I feel like you're painting us and me as
no, I'm not.
It's like there was a mistake made. I'm trying to follow along with what's going on here. You know, to me, a 300-pound rock stuck to frozen earth that you managed to get out of there very neatly. I mean, there was no. Did they attempt to break it up? Can you tell us that? You saw them attempt to break up the earth.
Of course they did, but the machine skips across it. It's a little excavator. I mean, let me show you a picture of something.
I'd love to see a picture of it. Dingo? Is it a mini excavator? What is it?
Hold on, I'm gonna try and show you a picture. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this.
I hope we can.
I'm gonna try. We're talking about a machine that looks like this. Hold on one second, please be patient. A little machine like this. Can you see that? See that little tiny machine?
Yeah.
That's not, that doesn't have the thrust power, the pulling power of a full-size backhoe or excavator. This is a little landscape machine that you can pull small rocks out and you can fit, it's only 6 feet wide. Anything else, it won't fit there. We'd crush the septic tanks coming over this side, and then coming around the other side, we wouldn't fit between the silt sock and the foundation. There's no benefit to me other than torturing myself, and I'm not a sadist, to not remove this dirt. I have a family that wants to move into that house out back and pay me $1.1 million, and I can't do it because you guys won't give me an occupancy permit because I won't remove this dirt. It's not because I don't want it.
Jim, I want to make this clear. I think Carl said this correctly. This is not what was proposed. This is a big piece, right? You had a permit for a project, and that's what you put out there was not in accordance with the permit.
I get it.
And that's a big deal. That is an important piece. And what happens? Hold on, Jim. Hold on. What's been happening? What happened on New Year's Eve when we got this piece of property? What happened on this one is we get something that is in this gray area of what we've asked for. That is not what we've got. And you're pinning us against the wall and saying a family can't move in if you don't approve this. And it's not what we.
The dirt was put there as in these crews come out here and they build these septic systems and they grade this ground for me. And this was his improvision. He felt to hold the grade, he had to bow it out a little bit, a couple feet. I told him, I said, they're gonna really not like this. He says, Jim, it'll be okay. It's better to step down than have a bull drop.
We're at where we're at. It shouldn't have gone in.
Okay, listen, I'm not arguing. I won't. I'm telling you, I'll remove it when I can. What else can I tell you? I don't know what else to do. I'm not. You haven't heard me say anything to the tone that I wouldn't do anything you've asked. When you asked me to put the wattle socks along the front and along the top of the grades and the other sections of the property because the grass didn't grow strong enough, I did it. Right? Didn't I?
So it sounds like
you've asked me to do, I've done what I can do. If removing this dirt was possible with that machine, it would be gone. The boulders would be outside that red line and this would be over. I don't enjoy this. You guys don't enjoy this. I'm not here to torture you or myself. I'm here to sell that back house and pray for warm weather for the next few weeks so we can get this over with and get it done. That's my objective.
Okay.
Guys, I plan on working in Reading a lot more. I don't want to fight with you every time I see you. I'm a businessman. I'm not here to cause you guys heartache and trouble. I don't understand that you can't see that. I know you don't know me, so sometimes you should take people at their word. And
Jim, in your 30 years experience, then roughly, so with the next town over, just let this go? Is that what would happen typically?
I'm not asking you to let. I'm not asking you to let this go.
No, I'm just wondering if that's what would happen typically, because I don't know.
No, I'm not asking. But no, why would you let this go? I'm not asking you to let this go.
You're making us feel pretty guilty about it.
Well, because it's such a grand position. We're talking about selling a home. And holding it back by removal of 2.5 yards of material. I'm not saying I won't do it. If it was diggable with that little machine, I'd dig it out. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I mean, how else can I say I'm a good guy, I'm an honest guy, I'm not a liar? But other than sounding like a 14-year-old, that's the reality of it. I have no benefit to lie to you.
I think you sound like a genuine guy. I do. I do.
I mean, I think you'd be happy to see when the warm weather comes, or the thaw, I should say, not even the warm weather, and I can dig this dirt out. We'll move the boulders outside there, and we'll make it look nice, and it'll be outside of that 35-foot zone. And if you want me to build a structure for the back step, for the back door, I'll do that too. I'm not trying to get away from doing my work. Believe me, I want to finish the letter of compliance, get my 10 grand back. It's a lot of money. Not to mention the million
right.
is a lot of money.
All right, so where is,
I mean, I think we're in the same spot that we were, frankly, is, you know, I think it's clear what this commission's been looking for in this area. You know,
Mike,
we have pulled this for a reason.
I give you my
I'm sorry?
word, this dirt will be removed and done in proper fashion, as fast and efficiently as I can possibly do it. All I can say.
We look forward to having that, and I'd like to see that, and then I think that's great, and we'll get to that certificate of occupancy when we get there.
If that's the way you're going to go.
And then you know, again, just like we talked about, when it comes to landscaping and final grading, that we understand that the weather needs to be in a better spot for that work to happen. All right.
I just don't want there to be any confusion, since the commission is asking for the dirt to be removed. I'm going to put up this other picture, and can you just make it crystal clear about, you know, where we're talking about? Where's that picture? Here it is. I drew this picture. I'm assuming that it obviously, the fill encompasses the area where you step out from the basement. The grades on the original approved plan will let us know about the rest of it. So you either have to meet those grades, but it looks like it goes back along the entire back of the house, and it was filled in along the back of the house. So I'll just set it up that way, but Mike, you just make it crystal clear so we all know what's needed and the direction that the commission is giving Jim, so that when this is done, I can sign off on the occupancy as directed by the commission.
Yeah. So thank you, Chuck. So the goal is, and I think Chuck has made an approximate, but as always, the best thing to go off is the plan. But we're looking for removal and grading of that fill outside that 30-foot line, and I think that's pretty close. What he's drawn is in that red zone.
35-foot line.
35-foot line.
I just think it's really outrageous that you would hold back someone to live to an occupancy for a house that it's not even this one, it's the other house. So really what you're saying is,
Mr. Castellano, I think we've been perfectly consistent. I understand you object. I understand you're under a lot of intense pressure. We've been consistent, and I think the majority of us have a similar opinion.
Been very consistent.
All right.
What else can I say?
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Castellano.
So you guys vote. What do you do? That's it. That's the end of it.
Do you want to make make a statement, Mag?
So why don't we? So I think what we've heard from the majority of the commission, we might as well have a vote on it, is the removal of that fill within the 35-foot zone, and that is what is intended as completion for that fourth item of the structure and retaining wall within the zone. Once that is complete, the certificate of compliance can be issued. Chuck.
Certificate of compliance or certificate of occupancy?
I'm sorry, certificate of occupancy. Certificate of occupancy can be issued.
So you're withholding the certificate of occupancy on a home that's 300 yards away from this one because of this material.
Mr. Castellano, I think you just heard, we've been consistent with what we're looking for.
You voted last meeting, you voted to approve the occupancy permit, but now you're doing this.
Contingent on what we're talking about here.
Outrageous.
All right.
So
can we
if it's warm tomorrow and the ground has thawed, he could dig this dirt out on Friday and get his occupancy permit ASAP?
We can, we have, yeah, so what I told Kim is that if I'm not available, I could get, you know, I didn't ask first, but I was sure I could get a commission member to go down there and verify. But, you know, we're back to this vote that needs to be taken. I'm in the tricky position where, you know, I think Jim thinks it's me holding him up. I'm just trying to do what the commission says. So I want clear direction this time. I don't want Jim to have any ambiguity about what you're asking. I would say something like, you need to remove the fill. You know, the motion is to like remove the fill as per the approved plan noted in the certificate of, in the order of conditions, because that has grading on it. And then I would need to compare that plan with what's out there, which puts a step in front of it. Maybe I can meet Andy out there and he can assure me. I have a good working relationship with Andy. So that won't be an issue, and it doesn't need to take a lot, but maybe that one step would have to happen. But I just want it to be clear, so don't miss anything in between, because I don't want to guess, and I want Jim to understand that this is coming from the commission.
And so what is the final verdict along that red line, just the kind of top of 35, are the boulders or rocks to be put back, or are we just sloping it down? Because that's the difference between another 3 yards of cubic yards of earth. There's
It
not
seems-
1 to 2, there's probably 7 or 8 yards in actuality.
Yeah.
So what's the final look here? So we're clear.
I think what I heard tonight is Jim wants to wait until he can do it all at once.
But to do it all at once, the rocks are going back, correct? To hold back the earth, or no? Or is he
Yeah,
slow?
I think he has to grade it also. So the
Right.
toe of the grade would have to be outside the 35 foot, so he loses even more. I mean, you get the most land,
But
you know.
please don't put words in my mouth. I did not say I want to wait till I can do it all at once. I told you I would grade this back, remove this dirt as soon as the weather allows me to. Now, planting all the other plants and final grading is going to be done in a timely manner. But to remove this dirt, I will do expeditiously as quickly as possible. But
That's the all at once I was talking about.
no, all at once is, I don't know, all at once.
I didn't mean everything. I meant just
Well,
this
everything
section.
you say, you didn't mean this, but you didn't mean that. But you say one thing and it doesn't mean another.
Okay,
None of
Jim.
it-
Okay, so to be clear then,
Jim, these directions are from the commission, not
Right.
from me.
Chuck,
Okay.
Chuck, you say things and they fall.
Jim,
It's
Jim,
embarrassing.
stop.
Listen, don't
Jim.
tell me this. You can mute me.
Stop.
You this is abuse of power. I just don't understand it. I've never seen
All right.
anything like it.
and Jim, there's not
let's
1
give-
to 2 yards of earth there. There's probably 8 yards of earth there. It's like,
Nah, well,
Can we just give clear direction of what we're looking for?
Maybe there's 50
I'd like to
yards.
see that too, Mike.
So
I'd like to see some clear direction as well, because I want to just circle back around to something I said that, you know, I can see how you can put the rocks around the corner of the house, but if the 35-foot line is butt tight up against the back of the house, how can you put rocks back up against the back of the house and still have them outside the 35-foot line? That's what
align them with the gutter in the house, the small ones, and move the big ones back as you go. It'll fit.
What's that?
And make it, you know, I don't know.
That's what I want to make certain that, you know, if
So let me, can I interrupt you guys? So are you the group that votes on the variance?
we are.
Yes.
Okay, so if I am to go for a variance and not remove the dirt, would you give it to me?
So there's requirements to meet a variance. You have to come before the commission with written language associated with the 3 requirements associated
Yep.
with the variance.
That's right. So we would have to review it. So you'd have to put together a
You'd have
variance
to review
request.
it. Okay. So the request would be to leave the dirt there and grade it and put rocks in and leave the platform the way the stairs, the back platform is to enter the door, and plant grass on it and have it hold. So what, I know, I mean, I know I have to file formal paperwork, but if you guys are the ones that vote on it,
Yeah, Jim,
why won't you?
come
Let me,
on.
excuse me, let me just finish my, excuse me, let me finish my thought. Why, if you tell me to go for a variance, why wouldn't you issue my occupancy permit under the precedence that I will file for a variance? I'll pay for the legal work and whatever it has to be done to get that variance. And I'll do that within the 30 days. And then these people can move into their house and everybody can, we can have continuity. We can keep moving forward instead of the obstruction of progress. It's not good business. And it's not good for the town of Reading. You're getting tax dollars for that house. It's just silly that something so little can hold up something so big. If you want me to go for a variance, you're telling me you guys will grant it. I'll be at the town hall tomorrow filling out the paperwork for the variance. I'll have Andy do whatever his part of it is. I'll have Attorney Charlie Houghton do his part, and we'll file it tomorrow, and you guys can vote on it. But in the meantime, if that's the direction you want me to go, why fight about removing the dirt? I will go for the variance if you're willing to give it to me. If it's only filing and paying a fee and going that route, so be it. I'll do that. But then at least you can give us the occupancy permit, let that family move into their house and move on with everyone's lives. Why keep fighting this and going backwards?
So Jim, I'll tell you what I need for you to file the variance, and you can decide if this makes any sense for you to go that way. I would need you to survey in exactly where the rocks are going in. You need to show us how far over the 35-foot line. So I need a survey of what's out there and how much dirt you've put on it to the extent. Then there's 3 questions that you have to answer, and well, you have to look into our regulations. I can send you those tomorrow. We can't go over them now. We have a variance section in our regulations, and you can look into that. And then at the end of the day, it's not automatic. It's up to the commission.
But it's up to the commission. The commission, we're all here tonight. The whole board's here. Right?
They cannot give you an answer because they're not going to shoot from the hip and run for luck on this situation. You need to present something in front of them for them to react to. It's unprofessional to say,
Jim,
give us an opinion.
Jim, I'll tell you, when we typically get a variance, Chuck just described it perfectly. We get a description that says, here are the items, here's the regulations, and here's how we meet those 3 items. You know, if it's,
I get it,
there's
but this is
no better way to do this. Here's the public good. Here's the
this is the board recommending that I go for a variance. I wasn't planning on going for a variance because I was going to just do the work. But you, Chuck and Dave, both the commissioner himself and a member of the board are recommending I go for a variance. So why can't we just say,
it's very hard to receive a variance as a contractor.
Oh, it's very hard. Now all of a sudden it's very hard, but you wanted me to go.
Jim, we're not playing games with you. We're just giving you the options. You're intelligent. You can explore the options.
Jim, that was just letting you understand the full, have a full understanding of what happens during a variance, so you didn't do something that you weren't fully aware of.
You tell me to go for a variance. Now you're saying it's very difficult to get one. Listen,
I wanted you to know that information, so you walked in with your eyes open, Jim.
Yeah, that's
Is this, Jim, you have a big project in Wilmington. This is what you do to the Wilmington Conservation Commission?
No, because the Wilmington Conservation doesn't behave like this. This is a joke. You just told me to go for a variance. And now in the next sentence, you say it's going to be very difficult to get that variance. Are you listening to yourself?
Permitting option.
Oh my God almighty. What a joke.
All right.
I'm telling you, I'll apply for the variance. I'll answer the 3 questions. I'll get Andy to survey the land, give you an exact lot line of where the rocks will be, exact amount of detail of how many layers of dirt are there, how much is there overall, and I'll fill out the paper for the variance. And now you're telling me, well, that's going to be very difficult for us to vote on. Why?
My preference would be to have the dirt cleared away. And I know that
there's one example.
You can't do that because the ground has been frozen, but the ground is not now thawing. And that would be my preference, is that we cut this conversation short and as soon as you can get out there and do the work, then the solution will have been reached.
But in the meantime, 3-4 weeks from now, these people still can't move into their home.
I don't know that the ground is going to be still frozen 3 or 4 weeks from now. You might be able to get the work done in
Let's say 2 weeks from now. It's going to take some time for that ground to thaw. It's not like an easy bake oven out there. This dirt is, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I just think it's a shame you're withholding an occupancy permit for a home that's 300 yards away from this material.
All right, I think we've hammered on all of this enough. I think we need clear direction of if the soil is going to be removed, what it needs to look like for us to issue a certificate of occupancy. That way, Chuck has clear direction. If while that's going on, Mr. Castellano would like to investigate what it takes to get a variance, he can do that and understand that. That is an option to go for. But there are requirements that need to be met and questions that need to be answered, and the commission still needs to review and approve those for that to be the case. They're not going to do it here tonight. You can investigate both paths. I think that gives you 2 paths to go down if you want to look into it. But I want a clear direction as what we're gonna accept from the standpoint of what soil needs to be removed for an occupancy to be provided. I think before we got on this tangent, I think we gave direction, but I'd like us to just restate this.
So we have the picture up, Chuck, of the back of the house there.
Sure, hold on a second. Let me go through it again.
So I'll take a stab at making a motion for a vote. I move that we require that the applicant remove soil that was placed within the 35-foot limits at a minimum, as shown on the approved plans under the order of conditions, not by this photograph, but on the plans as approved in the original order of conditions.
So that will determine the area of the earth to be removed. And just from the photo, just so it's on record, Chuck, right? We're just thinking that that's looking at the approved plan. I don't know where north is. So north, that's so the west corner, right? The back west corner of the house.
That's the street side.
Yes. Right. So that's 6 feet, give or take. Right. Then to where the deck landing is, whatever that is, roughly 12 inches, give or take, of earth to be removed.
But Carl, it's not just this. If you look at the plan, there might be some other fill because it hasn't, the existing limit of earth there has not been surveyed, and we cannot compare that with the notice of the plan that was agreed upon and approved under the order of conditions.
Okay.
So I don't want to work off of this photo. I
Yeah.
want to work off of the plan as it was designed and discussed and approved under the original order of conditions.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
So the grading on this plan, which is the revised plan, is actually further back than what we have been discussing.
Well, there's a grading contour that encroaches into the 35.
Right, the
a little
70.
bit, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but whatever we approved on that plan, soil has to be removed to meet this final grade.
All right.
And if it means cutting back an additional 2 to 3 feet, like 37, 38 feet from the wetlands, just to provide the space to start grading, then that's what has to happen. This gentleman he knows how to grade slopes. You know, we just want to see the preparation done. We understand it's not final yet, but pull that soil back and it will get finalized when it
All right.
can.
This is, all right. I see this as more work than what we have been talking about this whole time, this grading plan. Unless I'm wrong, and Mike maybe can help me, or someone, and he can help me out with this, but this looks like he would have to bring it back underneath the existing deck and over by the stairwell. This in front of the stairwell meets original grade.
No, I don't think that deck and stairwell is what's there currently.
But that area would have to meet original grade, and that's 7 feet back from the 35-foot line.
Chuck, where do you see that?
I think that we should make a
At the
motion
base
to
of
meet.
those stairs?
I think we should make a motion to meet the grades between the 35-foot. I want from the 35-foot into the wetland to meet those grades. So I really only care about that area, and I think that would be consistent. That's what we've been asking for.
Yeah,
And I think I
that's
don't want to get
consistent with what we've
confused.
asked for at the last meeting.
So if he meets the grades within that, between the 25-foot and the 35-foot area, and then you need to decide whether he's putting the stone in or not, or you care about that. But if you don't, then he has to meet the grading, the 3-to-1 slope. The toe of the slope can't go over the 35-foot. So you might say use the stones again, or
Right,
leave
just
it up
move
to
the
him.
stones back to originally thought, which makes sense. Okay.
Say that again,
Okay.
Carl.
So moving the stones back like we originally thought is really the most efficient way, because if he's going to cut back into 3 to 4 feet into the soil, now he's under the deck, like Chuck is saying, or Anika was saying, or so.
So Chuck, I ultimately agree with you. I think what I've always cared about, and I think what we've always been talking about, is the fill and the grading inside the 35-foot. That's what I want to see fixed.
Right.
If that means there's rocks to make that work outside that zone, then we're at where we're at with this plan. But I want to see it's the 25 to 35 to match those grades. Does that make sense? Anika, is that maybe in line with?
So there's a 76 in the back of the house that kind of follows along.
Right, that's the back west corner, right?
Yep, 76 is all.
Which is kind of what
here.
your image is showing, Chuck, I feel like.
Yeah, so where is that? Right here.
Yeah.
And I think that line comes down through here. I
Mhm.
lose
No,
it. I
it
lose
comes
it
in
in this
tight.
area.
It
Maybe it
comes down,
connects
yeah,
right here. 76.
That's it right there.
Yeah. So basically 76, and then I don't know what happens here, but I don't follow it again. But it looks like this whole area would be at the 76 and 76 all throughout through here. And then, so what about the stones? It's stones, I see it 2 ways. Either leave it up to the contractor, leave it up to the developer and say, install the stones, or just don't have any fill beyond the 35-foot line.
Right.
And however you achieve that, it's up to them.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay,
Anika, do you want to make your best to amend? Is that
I would love somebody else to give it a stab, but
Carl?
Yeah. So we're, it's like I had a little help here. So we're making a motion to amend. Or just move forward?
We didn't
well,
vote on the other one,
maybe
so just make a
Anika
motion.
can
then.
withdraw her motion, and then we can just
Okay.
make a,
I withdraw my motion. Thank you.
thanks. Now, Carl, you're on. Yeah, it's whatever, you can, it's all you now.
All right, so I make a motion to, trying to get my list back up here. To remove the earth from the 35 boundary line to the 25 along the rear of the house to the eastern side of the property of the house. And right,
I would, yep,
um,
sorry.
Yeah. Is that
That's good.
And north. Are we saying in north of that building too?
well? We're
North
south. North is up, so separates of south into the south of the building. Just follow the 76 contour to the deck, and I would keep the top of that 35-foot line. So we don't have. He can make the decision to either grade further back if he wants, but we just want the earth out of the 35 boundary line. And I don't know, without a drawing, it's hard to articulate. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could send back 11 by 17 scan if you want.
Meet the grades between the 35-foot and the 25-foot jurisdictional setbacks as shown on this revised plan, as shown on the revised plan, that seemed to indicate the 76 contour line, which would be expected throughout this area. No fill is allowed beyond the 35-foot line, and the applicant has the option to use stone retaining walls as long as they don't encroach into the 35-foot no structure zone line. I think that's all I got. I think that's pretty much. So if someone can
Carl, if you want to say if so moved.
yeah, something like that. And then we need a second, I guess. I just put it together. That's all I did.
No, I think that's what we're talking. I hate that we're so worried about the word, but I think that's what we need to say. So, do I hear a second?
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
David Tenet in favor.
Keith in favor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Castellano. All right, Chuck. Next item on the agenda, 445 Pearl Street.
So this last 1503 and 1505 has taken all of my time. I didn't get a chance to write that violation notice. I didn't get a chance to even call call the applicant or call the violator. And I think that if you allow me, I will write it between this meeting and the next and send it out when it's ready. And then I'll bring it to the next meeting and the commission can make changes on it if they don't think I've captured everything, or just ratify what I've put out there. But that might be the fastest way at this point to get the violation notice out to this address.
Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I think that's the best way. I think that's what we want to do move forward. I think it's been a month and a half now, and we haven't seen action from this. So I think it's time that we get that violation notice. I think you know what you need to prepare, and we can review it at the next meeting.
I just want to say I was coming home on Pearl Street from the site visits today and noticed that the 445 Pearl Street has erosion control on the top of the slope next to that stream. So something has happened there.
Yeah, the erosion control was put in when we first went out there. I mean, this would be an easy project except for the bank erosion on the other side, which is severely undercut. And it almost looks like that whole bank is going to fall in. I think, Mike, we should bring this up at the DPW meeting. This is something we need to collaborate with the DPW about and work together on, because
Okay.
it's their, that's their stream. They need to keep that open. I don't think they have like the authority to fine and whatnot like we do, but that collaboration between just working together on it would be helpful. Plus, I need to talk to the person who originally saw this violation and reported it.
No, I think that's a good idea, Chuck. Okay. Make sure to make that up. So it's like April 3rd or something's our next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't have the agenda up. Hold on a second. So we have Pearl Street. There were no emergency permits issued. And we have 1503 Main Street enforcement order. I want to take that off. I think we've kind of come beyond that. 30 Chesapeake, is that it? Just quit. That one still needs to be discussed because they were planting out there, and we want to check that out in the spring. And Perfectos, I saw a chain go up. I've watched a few times. I depend a little bit on Dave about that. He seems to watch also. I haven't heard from Dave. So I'm assuming what I saw, which was they weren't parking there, has been the case. We need to figure out what we want to do about that. Maybe we'll just hold on to it for another meeting or so. We talked about 444 Pearl Street. I have direction on that. The minutes that you see here, only the 210 2021 came in, but they came in today. So I'll send them out to the commission. It wasn't fair to send them out to you on that. I would also go back to number 3, old and new business. I think it's important to start thinking about these certificates of compliance for 53 Arcadia, for 18 small, and for 22 small. I think we're getting into a spot where, spring's coming, the lease is going to start to bud out, and before this meeting wasn't the time, but in the next couple of meetings, it might be, let's take a look and let's see if we can issue all 3 of those. And that would be great to get them off the agenda. That's all. That's anything else, Mike? I know that there's people waiting, but outside of that.
That's all I've got. So I think the last item on the agenda is the Reading Memorial High School Environmental Club Q&A. So I don't know if you guys have seen, and I don't think they were all able to stick it out with us, and I don't blame them. It's getting late here.
I don't blame them either.
The Reading, what's that?
I said I don't blame them either.
the Reading Memorial High School Environmental Club was attended the meeting tonight, and you saw we received a good comment from one of the from a student, I think in one of the earlier ones. And so what we'd like to do is open it up to questions and your questions from them on the meeting process, if they had any, and what was anything that they could think of to ask. So I think Nola and Sedona, I see you guys are there. I'll give you guys the opportunity if you have any questions or wanted to know anything or.
Yeah, we wanted to thank you for letting us sit in, but we were wondering if you could postpone us for asking questions since most of the club isn't here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. We can certainly do that. I think it's great that you guys had the ability to join. If come whenever, and certainly from the standpoint of if you come to the next meeting, we'll let you move to the front of the line next time and ask some questions. But I'm glad you're able to see the different types of projects that we review, the different types of situations that come in front of us, and the things that we have to consider. So.
All right.
All right.
So with that, I don't know if Dave was. I thought Dave
Dave,
asked
you have
to have
any
some
other items?
time.
What?
Did you want to say something? I thought you asked to say something. No.
No.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other items? And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
That's it. Thanks, guys.
An
Bye
early
now.
night. It's crazy. Have a good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.